We welcome you to another live edition of the Sports Box, brought to you by our friends at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and use the box at sign up for 10 points. And here we go.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Highly Opinionated Show that's going to be absolutely smoking tonight.
You better get comfortable.
I'm Mike Galletta, along with Brian the Ranger Attard, Cowboy fan in the house.
Are you in a comfortable chair right now? This is going to be one of our marathon episodes for sure.
Yeah, I'm strapped in, ready to go. Should have a good one tonight. Talk to a lot of guests tonight, folks. We are doing NFC East, AFC East. Should be riveting, but first, Brian will give you a little hit on CrowdPlay.
Guys, want to give a shout out to our friends over at CrowdPlay. Check out the free app. It is on Google Play, the Apple App Store. It is free to play. And if you're like me and you suck at it, you can use the box at sign up for 10 free points. You will need those points. You can get cash and prizes. There is no catch. It is totally free. Check it out. Definitely got to give those guys a shout out.
It's free?
Totally free.
Bang, I'm in.
Dave Birnbaum is like all in on the free.
I'm loving the free.
On the free stuff. So, Michael, as you mentioned, tonight we are doing the NFC East and the AFC East previews. We have a plethora, a star-studded lineup of guests. And who better to kick off the guest tonight than a very good friend of mine from Blueshirt Underground, which is a Rangers group, which is where Jim and I, have our Venn diagram where we meet in the middle on that one. Which if you're a Rangers fan is must-see programming for sure. But he is a devout Giants fan as well, so we'll bring him on. Jim Schmiedeberg. Jim, welcome to the show.
Good evening. Thanks for having me, guys.
What's up, Jim?
Absolutely. So I know that we're not really in your forte of Ranger hockey, but we got about a month until the draft, so we can kind of.
You got to change your banner down there. Says NFC North.
Listen,
there we go.
We fix them week to week. I might have missed one.
Hey Jim, you played pregame. It says 2:00, and he screwed.
I have a lot of detail we're going to get to. So it's always the little things that you miss, right?
If you're expecting me to Vikings, I can't help you.
Talking a little Packers, right?
We'll talk a little G-men. Jim, the Giants were 4-12 a year ago, third in the division, didn't make the playoffs. Offensively, 18th in points, 23rd in yards, 18th through the air, 19th on the ground. Not as good defensively, 30th in points, 25th in total defense, 28th against the pass, 20th against the run. Added a couple big names actually in free agency to that defense. They added James Bradbury, the cornerback, as well as Blake Martinez, the former tackle machine from Green Bay. And the biggest subtraction, I think, is Eli Manning. After a storied career with the Giants, he has gone on to greener pastures and handed the keys to the car over to Daniel Jones. They took Andrew Thomas 4th overall, offensive tackle out of Georgia, in the draft. So to get started, Jim, your reflections on the end of an era, which an auspicious beginning, the way he kind of made his way to New York with the holding up of the Chargers jersey, looking very upset. Ended up having, an all-time Hall of Fame career as a Giant.
He looked like I would have looked if I had to hold up a Chargers jersey or a Cowboys jersey. Yeah, I mean, that was such a ridiculous. I mean, that whole thing was just ridiculous. Going back to that night when they drafted him, and then the Chargers tried to hold the Giants up for ransom, and but it is what it is. And Eli was, look, all I care about is the rings. You could talk about his interceptions, his fumbles. Did he stay on too long? Probably, but look, the guy earns a pass with me. 2 rings are all that matters. Those are 2 of the greatest memories I'll ever have as a Giants fan. So I got no complaints. I wish him well. I'm glad he retired as a Giant and didn't try and hang on, get some backup contract with Minnesota or Green Bay, like some guys that just don't know when it's over. He knew it was over, and he went, and now we've got Eli Jr. Looks just like him, plays just like him, fumbles just like him, throws picks just like him. Sounds like Warriors the kid. I mean, what more could you ask for?
Yeah, Jim, I'm going to get to that. Like you said about Eli, I mean, I remember him for 2 Super Bowls, but when Eli's bad, and you'll probably admit he
breaking news, it's 1-1 in the Flyers-Islanders game. Just going to break that.
He throws picks. He throws a ton of picks, but when he's on, he's probably one of the better guys in the league. With that being said, What do you think this year holds for Danny Dimes? Because I think he's only going to get better. I mean, here's a guy who came in with maybe not a top 5 pedigree, but I think he slides into a system he's getting comfortable with, and I think he'll be okay this year, especially with Barkley back there.
Well, yeah, I mean, and let me state for the record that your co-host can attest that I told him last February that the Giants were going to draft Daniel Jones. Despite all the other talk, I said this is the guy focused in on because he had the pedigree, the whole Manning training, the whole and the what's the guy's David Rutledge, I think is the guy's name that trained him at Duke, and you could just see it coming.
And what did I say to you? I said at 17, you're like, no, it's 6.
Yeah,
right. I didn't know.
That's the thing, Jim. I like the pick. I don't like where they took him. That's the problem. He would have been there at 17. I mean, I don't think it was an issue.
Depending on, the way I look at it is, if he's the guy that you want, then you better damn sure if you've got no plan B, and it didn't sound like the Giants had a plan B, then you better damn well make sure you get him. Yeah. So, I mean, take him at 6. As long as you get him, if he's the guy you want, then you might as well get him when you get him, because, again, I don't think they had a plan B. I certainly hope that they're going to be able to correct his fumbling problem. I know they had a blue-white scrimmage the other night that didn't go real well for Danny in the fumbling and turnover department. So hopefully that's something they're going to be able to correct. I didn't want Jason Garrett as head coach, but I do like him as offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. I think they could have done a lot worse than Jason Garrett as head coach, because Pat Shurmur, and I don't know, see how old your audience here is, but the only thing keeping Pat Shurmur from being the worst Giants head coach of my lifetime is Ray Hanley. Okay, Pat Shurmur was a bad hire from the start, and it just wasn't going to end well. That guy, you win or lose, he always looked exactly the same. He never got mad. He never got frustrated. I want to see the guy just was even keel. You couldn't tell if they lost by 30 or won by 5, and he had 4-12 written all over him, and that's exactly what they got out of him. So I'm glad he's gone. Joe Judge was kind of the wild card pick here, but I understand they go for somebody that trained under Belichick, so it kind of made sense. And he has said and done all the right things so far, but it's only we're only at September 1st.
Well, he's the third new full-time head coach, since Coughlin left after 2015. I mean, are they just making terrible hires? I know Ben McAdoo was a total disaster from the jump.
Well, yes, and I mean, in the end, yes, but they did go 11-5 with Ben McAdoo somehow, and then I think the next year he just kind of lost control of everything, and he was fired, and then they replaced him with Spagnuolo for a couple of games. I think when they got rid of Coughlin, I thought it was time. I think every coach, eventually just runs out of gas. Every coach has a shelf life, as Glenn Sather likes to say. And I think Coughlin, it was time. McAdoo seemed like a good hire at the time, but it didn't pan out. I knew Shurmur wasn't going to work out. I pray they got it right this time.
I know last year they got hit with a little bit of an injury bug with, Evan Ingram got hurt for a little bit of time. Sterling Shepard was out for a period of time. Golden Tate was bitching. Do you see this offense, a little bit better this year with a healthy Shepard, Tate, and Ingram in there?
I think Evan Ingram's going to be the
2-1 Flyers.
I think Evan Ingram is going to be a big key if he can stay healthy, and if the offensive line can come together. This offensive line, after seemingly being rebuilt every year for the last couple of years, now I think they're going to be hopefully a little more stable. Nate Solder has opted out for the year because of health concerns for his family, which I certainly understand. But I think they've drafted well. Andrew Thomas was a good pick in the first round. He seemed to be the consensus for the most pro-ready tackle that they could have went for. Maybe not the guy with the highest ceiling, but maybe the most ready to play right away, which I think might have been a little more important. The third round draft pick, whose name just escaped me, Matt Pert.
Matt Pert, right tackle.
Very high on him. So hopefully they get the line straightened out. They got to figure out who's going to play center. They're trying to convert Nick Gates to play center, and I guess they've had some exchange problems with Daniel Jones, from what I understand. But hopefully that's something they could work out. But right now they only have one true center on the roster, I believe, and that's Spencer Pulley. Just to finish the thought on the offense, I think Garrett will find more ways to be creative with Saquon Barkley, somewhat like he did with Elliott in Dallas. But Barkley's much better than Elliott.
Well, I mean, he
I just have to throw that out there because it's down.
He should be. He's going to get a much better contract, and you'll hate it every day because that's what these guys get paid.
Yeah.
When they got Leonard Williams from the Jets last year, I think it kind of raised some eyebrows because they weren't in contention mode. They were kind of like, getting through the season, and they make this deal for a guy who people thought might go to a contender. But they have him slotted as starting defensive end this year. So I guess they're pretty happy with their acquisition.
Yeah, he hasn't generated much in the pass rush, but he is one of their definitely one of their best run stoppers. I think they gave him the franchise tag for this year, and they could still try and work out a long-term deal with him if they want to keep him. I'm sorry, the comment just popped up. I think it was a bit of a head scratcher, but I'm still giving Gettleman the benefit of the doubt. I give the guy credit. He's got the courage of his convictions. That's for sure. When he wants something, he stands by it, and hopefully Leonard Williams could work out for them. I think they're going to be strong against the run. The question is if they can generate a pass rush.
So, Jim, in that secondary this year, I know it's a little bit overhauled. You got 5 rookies back there contending for jobs. Which of the rookies do you see, if at all, any of them that can compete for a starting job this year?
Hopefully, well, I'm anxious to see Darnay Holmes from UCLA. I think he was the 4th round pick. I've heard good things about him in camp. They had Sam Beal, was a supplemental pick last year. He's opted out for the season now. And then they lost the 2nd round pick, Xavier McKinney. They lost him for, I think it's 10 to 12 weeks. So, who knows when they'll actually see him on the field. So the secondary is going to be a bit of a question mark. I'm looking forward to seeing what Julian Love can do in his 2nd year. And they signed Logan Ryan yesterday, which was almost a signing they had to make.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It always comes down to the defense with the Giants, but it's got to start with a pass rush first. You could have you could have the best corners in the world back there, but they can only cover a guy for so long if you're not getting a pass rush. If a quarterback's got unlimited time to throw, is it 3-1 Flyers?
We're waiting on the call.
Still.
No goal, 2-1.
Yeah.
No goal.
Jim, I guess on a side note of that, I mean, yeah, they might struggle a little bit, and that might be a tough spot for them. But they are all young, so if they all can keep this together, I mean, that's great continuity moving forward. You get a young secondary like this play together. I mean, that's only good things coming.
Absolutely.
John Slugs had a question. DJ had 3,000 yards a year ago. Do you think he keeps it up or takes a step back this year? And again, I think I know the answer to this question, but did you see enough from him last year that that he is their guy moving forward? He went 3-9 in his 12 starts, but 24 touchdowns and 12 picks, and about the 3,000 yards that he had.
Do I know? No, but with what they've got invested in him, he better be. I mean, because if he's not, then we're going to scrap it after 2 or 3 years. Then you're going to go back to the drawing board with another new quarterback. Again, he has all the tools that are there. He's got to work on his internal clock. He's got to know when that pass rush is coming. He's got to stop forcing plays, and he's got to know that Joe Judge told him, a sack isn't always the worst thing in the world. Sometimes you just got to eat. You got to eat the football instead of trying to make a play. And unfortunately, his predecessor suffered from the same problem. 16-0. Is that what you want to know?
16-0.
That's what I had him. That's what I had him, Jim.
The win number actually comes first. I'm not sure if we cleared that up or not.
Well, that week 8, that's going to be a train wreck now. Week 8, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, they have a pretty rough start to the season, no matter how you slice it.
That's
2 of the 3 games are at home, but I mean, those are you're going to get Big Ben's first game back.
Yeah.
Right.
You go to Chicago, who sucks offensively, but the defense is very, very good. And San Francisco is the team that went to the Super Bowl last year. I mean, their first semi-easy game, if you want to call it that, I think is a road game on week 4 against the Rams.
Yes. Yeah, it's not an easy schedule, but seems like it never is. And there's no home field advantage this year. At least there, not much. Maybe a couple of bad weather teams late in the year, but certainly we're not going to have crowd noise being a factor. But I still think I think they're going to be a better team than last year. I think they'll certainly they'll be definitely better fundamentally than they were. I think they're a 6-7 win team this year.
The number 6.5. So you're right on there.
They could surprise. They might steal a game here and there and get to 7 wins, but I think it's possible.
I mean, I might have to sneak up the Turnpike on November 2nd to see that game. I forgot they're playing. They're playing here.
Where are you gonna see it? No fans at Giant Stadium.
Oh, that's true. Certain fans are allowing. Certain stadiums are allowing fans, aren't they?
Not this
all.
Not in New Jersey.
Not Giant Stadium.
Not in New Jersey. John Sugg says Joe Judge is a great hire, and actually, I think you said you liked him. I mean, were you a fan of that? I mean, I know obviously you hated the guy who was there before, so it's not as if you're going to cry over Shermer leaving. But as far as the hire that they did make after kind of getting left at the altar a little bit by Matt Rule, who stayed in Carolina.
Yeah, I think, and quite frankly, I think they lucked out when Matt Rule backed out. I think Judge was probably hopefully he's the right guy at the right time. I mean, he seems very, he's very out. He does some very outside the box things. He's got the defensive backs practicing with tennis balls taped to their hands to try and teach them not to hold. That didn't work either in the blue-white scrimmage the other night. The first play from scrimmage, I think there was a holding call on the defensive backs, but they're trying a lot of different things, and this is going to be a very strange year as far as everything. So we'll see. I think he's going to be. I hope he's the right guy for the job, but he certainly has given a good impression so far.
Yeah, we'll definitely see.
The one guy I wanted to, my fantasy focus for the Giants is actually Darius Slayton. I think enough has been said about Sterling Shepard, and I think Evan Ingram is up for a breakout year. But Slayton had some good chemistry with Daniel Jones last year. I remember I think the game against Tampa, that wild game. I mean, he played a really big role there. I think he's the clear number 2. I don't know where Golden Tate fits in. I don't know if Slayton plays the slot or whatnot, but I do think that he's a guy for these fantasy guys like later in drafts that might be one of those diamonds in the rough. And the Giants should have to throw quite a bit to stay in games.
I think Slayton's a good guy. If Tate or Shepard goes down again or is out for a little bit of a time, I definitely think he can get in there and get some catches.
Yeah, I mean, Slayton had what was it? I think 48 catches last year, 8 touchdowns. So he was, I think, a 4th round pick. So yeah, he definitely, and he had great chemistry with Jones, like you said. So hopefully another year under his belt. Ingram staying healthy is a key, and they've got the other tight end that they're high on, Caden Smith.
Yep.
They've just got to. It's all about protecting Daniel Jones and him protecting the football, and everything will steamroll from there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
you said they're at a 6-7 win team. Are you sticking with that for the record for the year?
Yeah, I think that's pretty within range. I'm usually a Giant optimist, but I think 6-7 wins is about right. Maybe we sneak a win against Dallas. Maybe we steal one from Philly, and that's okay. I think they're on the right track. So I can't get it used to kill me, these, but I'm not as I don't live or die quite the way I used to with every win or loss. I'm okay. I'm a little older, a little more mellow now than I used to be. A little more even keel than I used to be, and I could show a little more patience with them than maybe my other sports teams.
Nice.
Well, I mean, they have given you a championship in recent memory,
right? 2,
more than one, actually.
Right.
Not so much.
Yep.
Not so much for the baseball team. Not so much for the hockey team.
No,
unfortunately.
So
you like the Mets ownership change? You excited about that?
I'll believe it when it happens, when it's officially done. Then we need a GM change, and then we go from there.
Right. No more player agents. Guys, again, if you are a Ranger fan, if you're a hockey fan, check out Jim and Eddie, Blueshirt Underground. They've been going for well over 10 years now. I am a devout fan. I've had the absolute pleasure of meeting the guys up in New York a couple times, and being that we're on the ascension, the rebirth of the New York Rangers in the next couple of years, I think now would be a good time to maybe jump on that bandwagon and definitely check out Blueshirt Underground for sure. Now, Mike's not going to do that, but I think the rest of you might want to.
Yeah,
it's okay. Even though I'm rooting for the Flyers, that doesn't sway you at all.
Jim, I know that's only for today. So
it's only till the series is over.
The lesser of two evils up there, right?
Right, absolutely.
So, Jim, thanks for the time. We appreciate it, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, guys.
Jim, thank you. Care. Thanks, Jim.
Bye. Giants are an interesting team. Because they have a lot of talent at the right places, and if everything works their way, I think they could be the 6.5 number. I mean, again, coaching was a problem for them last year, the same it was for Dallas. So if Joe can get in there and kind of right a lot of the wrongs that Shermer had, I think they could be a better team than people give them credit for.
I'll say the last thing. The thing that's going to be key for the Giants this year is keeping Danny Dimes upright, because that in itself gives him time to find some receivers that weren't healthy last year. So if they can get open and he can stay upright a little bit or move out of the pocket, Evan Ingram's a beast when he's healthy. I mean, he's definitely a big target that people watch, but he's going to get a ton of balls if he's healthy. Saquon Barkley's going to have a nice year if that offensive line can open up some stuff for him. I agree. I mean, the Giants, it's all going to depend on Daniel Jones this year to see how he plays. I mean, he's driving the train this year. If they get to 7 wins, it's on his back this year.
Absolutely. So we will stay in the state of New York. We'll cross over to the AFC East and talk about those Buffalo Bills, because, Michael, you know that nobody circles the wagons
like Josh Allen,
quite like the Buffalo Bills. And I want to bring on Ryan Leach, a big fan of the show, who's on it, watches a lot of our stuff, shares a lot of our stuff. Ryan, welcome on.
Ryan.
How you guys doing?
Good. How are you, pal?
The first time I saw your name pop up in the show, I'm like, Brian Leach. And I'm like, huh.
All right. So Brian, I'm going to point this out ahead of time because I'm excited about this. So 2 years ago, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, when Josh Allen came in the league, that draft with, all these other name guys and Baker Mayfield and all this stuff. Brian, I want to remind everybody out there, who did I say was going to be the best one in that draft?
You said Josh Allen.
I love Josh Allen coming into this draft. Kid coming out of Wyoming, throws the ball a lot, big arm, had to learn a little bit, but I'm not saying he's a top 5 quarterback or Pro Bowler, but he's gotten a lot better than his rookie year, so that's a good thing. So
I think I'm totally biased, but I honestly think he's been the best progressed quarterback from that class. Honestly, yeah. Baker Mayfield, came in with a lot of hype as the number 1 pick, and he hasn't really shown a lot in Cleveland. And Sam Darnold, maybe he might be as good as he as Allen, but he's on the Jets, and the Jets are the Jets. So,
right,
yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's talk about the Bills last year. 10-6, second in the AFC East. They lost to Houston in the wild card game, a game that they had the lead in that game. I think they were up 16-0 at one point. Unfortunately, they weren't able to close the door. They were a much better team defensively than offensively. They were 23rd in points, 24th in yards, 26th in passing, but 8th on the ground. That was the highlight, obviously, because everybody runs. The quarterback runs, the running back runs, everybody runs.
Yep.
Very stout defensively, though. 2nd in points, 3rd in yards, 4th against the pass, 10th against the run. A couple big-time additions in the offseason. Vernon Butler, Josh Norman, and, of course, Stephon Diggs acquired from the Minnesota Vikings with a first-round pick. They did lose Shaq Lawson, Lorenzo Alexander. The over-under for this team is 9 coming off a 10-6 season. So, listen, Ryan, they're the sexy pick to win the division this year, and I don't know how you feel about that, but – and it isn't a slate against the Bills, but I think that's more about what New England isn't doing and what the Jets and the Dolphins aren't doing. And it's kind of one of those things where, do the Bills kind of win it by default? As far as that added pressure, those expectations that maybe the Bills have not had, how does that rub you?
I'm the type of there's a lot of different types of Bills fans out there. There's the really excited Bills fan who, always thinks we're going to beat New England every single time we get out there. And really you have to have that confidence. You don't want to go into a game or a season against New England and say, yeah, we can't beat them. But I mean, I'm the type that I'll believe it when I see it in a little bit of a sense. I think you're going to have to beat Belichick. You're not going to beat, we don't have Brady to go against. We don't have Gronk to go against. But, I mean, you're still going to have to beat Belichick. And I respect Bill Belichick as a head coach. I mean, he is, Tom Brady didn't win those Super Bowls by himself. And he didn't win all those division championships by himself either. So, I mean, I think the Patriots go like the Bills go almost in a sense by defense. The Bills have always had a pretty solid defense, even in their bad years, have had pretty solid defenses. And I think that, I mean, I don't want to talk too much about the Patriots because I know you got somebody coming up for them. But, at the same time with the Patriots, I mean, I need to see their defense first, too. And, if they have a good defense, they could sneak a couple wins. I mean, Cam Newton, if he could be even half of what he was in Carolina, I mean, could take over the division, too. So, I think really, we always have had a big defense. I think that's going to have to, really be the thing that carries us. But I mean, I'm very pleased with the progress I've seen from Josh Allen. I mean, you got to understand, the Bills, yes, have made 2 playoff appearances in the last 3 years. And Josh Allen that was his first year in the playoffs. That was his first snip of the playoffs. So, I mean, I'm willing to give him a pass, even though we were up, 16-0 in that game. But he's got to learn to win these playoff games, and he never had playoff experience. I mean, you're not getting too much playoff experience in Wyoming. You're not getting too many big game experiences in Wyoming, and I think I've liked the progression I've seen from him year after year. I'm hearing a lot from the scrimmages and stuff like that he's trying to be more of a he's not trying to run first, and he's trying to find a throwing option first, which I'm intrigued by. I'll believe it when I see it in the season, but I think it really comes down to the defense and Josh Allen and to see if he progresses.
So Ryan, I'll ask you. I talk about Josh Allen. He's got Stephon Diggs this year, which is great. He's got Devin Singletary back there and all. But what I'm excited for is give me a little Dawson Knox. Here's a kid coming out of Ole Miss that it seems like he's working a little bit of chemistry with Josh Allen right now. Do you think there's going to be a lot more of, Dawson Knox this year in a kind of like an Evan Ingram role we just had on with the Giants?
Yeah, I do. And I think with Dawson Knox is the big thing is he had Tyler Kroft as a mentor, really. And, he had that veteran tight end from Cincinnati to work with him. So I think, and he's still there as far as I know. So, I mean, with 2, pretty good, starting tight ends, you could say 1 and 1A, I need to see more out of Dawson Knox. I think towards the end of the year, in the big games, he really wasn't showing up. But they didn't utilize him a lot too. In that Houston game, it was all Josh Allen and running the football. So, I mean, I'll believe it when I see it. It's a lot of I believe it when I see it. But I liked what I saw in the bright spot he had. I think that with him and Kroft, if they keep working together, I think that might be the other offensive key outside of the running backs and the wide receivers.
I want to bring up Stephon Diggs because the trade kind of surprised me. It surprised me because, he was a bit of a malcontent in Minnesota, and they gave a first round pick for him, not a low pick either. I mean, it's a sizable, a very valuable pick. I didn't necessarily think the receivers were their problem last year. I mean, I know they've been looking for the number 1 guy in Buffalo since Sammy Watkins kind of didn't work out. What were your thoughts on that? Were you okay with giving that up?
I over time, I'm getting okay with it. John Brown was our number 1 receiver last year, and he was good, but I don't know if he was really the number 1 receiver we needed. I think we needed a real big star power receiver. Diggs was definitely not happy in Minnesota. I don't think the chemistry was really there with Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins was more involved with Adam Thielen and in that dynamic, and I think that Diggs was getting a little jealous of that and not getting the ball enough. And that's one thing that definitely worries me when you say malcontent. I more would say head case. I thought he was more of a head case in Minnesota. And, I worry that he might be that same head case in Buffalo. But, I mean, so far, you haven't heard much from him. He's been impressive in the practice field. Before I was just on, I actually saw a video highlight where he outran Tre'Davious White in a scrimmage. It was one thing, but he looked good. So I think the key is, and I'm sure you'll probably bring up McDermott at some point here, but with McDermott, he's very team oriented, and he expects a lot as a group as a whole. He's not really the type that has to cater to the big stars and stuff like that. And I think that's what he's the type of coach I think that we've always needed. I like the fact that now we're going to have him around for a while. We signed him to that big extension, and I think that's a good thing for the Bills because they've had the coaching AFC East coaching carousel that's been going around for years, and now we might have somebody other than Belichick that might stick around with the team for more than 2-3 years.
So the last question I have for you, Ryan, you talk about the Bills secondary. They got guys like Micah Hyde back there, like you said, Tre'Davious White, Josh Norman. That's going to be interesting to see what he does. But I'm interested to see one of the two, or actually both of the rookies that they brought in, Josh Thomas from Appalachian State and Dane Jackson. From what I heard from Josh Thomas, here's a kid that can not only cover at 205 pounds, can hit like they've some guys have compared him to Ronnie Lott, which is pretty impressive. So have you heard anything about coming out of camp about Josh Thomas, how he's doing, or about Dane Jackson at all, the two rookies?
I haven't heard a ton, but I think what it comes down to, too, is now they might have that cornerback depth that they really didn't have last year. White was down for a little bit, and Edmonds was down. And then, there really wasn't another cornerback that the Bills had in their depth chart that they really felt comfortable with to be the guy to take over. Norman right now is hurt, and we don't know how long he's going to be out for. He's got a hamstring injury, and he's not a young spring chicken either. So nope. These hamstrings could take a long time. So I think they're definitely going to need to rely on the rookies to come through, the cornerbacks to come through, and be that that steady force just in case there is a hiccup. And in a season with COVID basically over the clouds of the team, you definitely need as much depth. Just look at baseball teams right now and how much depth they have, and the football teams are going to need the same.
So you would take a look at the Bills' schedule. They have a really solid opportunity, in my opinion, to possibly go 4-0 to start the year. I know the Jets games are always tough, but I do think this is a better team than the Jets this year. Miami, they should be able to handle. I don't think that much of the Rams this year, and I think the Raiders are up and down. To me, going into a tough game in Tennessee, they could conceivably be 4-0. Then it gets more difficult because you have those back-to-back games against a playoff team in Tennessee, and I don't know how they're going to do against a Kansas City team. I don't care where that game is.
Yeah.
But, as we're going to talk about with Kevin Fitzmaurice a little bit about the Pats, maybe we're a little premature in writing them off, as I think you've kind of, you got to believe it, you got to see it to believe it. This is not an overly easy schedule. It's a second-place schedule for a team that made the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
And there are some pitfalls. Again, the two home games, the New England and Seattle home games, those are not easy. You have to go to San Francisco. That's not easy. You have Denver and New England at the end of the year. To me, they better win the games they're supposed to win, because I think they're not going to have a lot of room, a lot of leeway for losses. But I think with the expanded playoffs, it's hard not to put this team in the postseason picture.
I think, and Rob, free answer, I'm gonna tell you, I think it could be one of the easiest second place schedules in the league if they take care of the division games, because I don't think the Patriots are going to be that good this year, because I'm not big on Cam Newton at all. I don't think the Jets are going to be good again, and I think Miami's going to struggle with Tua in there. So if they can take care of the division, I'm not going to say it's cakewalk, but I think it's one of the easier second-place schedules in the league, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I mean, Mike, what you just said was spot on. I mean, you gotta win the division games. That's how New England won all their division championships, is by winning those division games. And I think that's going to be the big key. I'll be honest, when I first saw the opponents even last year going into this year, I thought, geez, this is going to be a tough schedule. And I still think it's a tough schedule. As Brian said, those first 4 games are manageable, but you got to win them too. And, in the first couple weeks, with a lot of teams, teams that should win, lose, and teams that should lose, win. And, you gotta take care of your house the way, you gotta take care of things. I think that, going from home and then going across the country to Las Vegas might be tough. I don't. Kansas City at home is going to be a little bit better managed than Kansas City on the road. Seattle and Arizona, I think, could be better. I don't see that being a cakewalk game. The Chargers stink, so I think that should be okay, providing they continue on the path they're going. I think. San Francisco, they managed the game pretty well. Pittsburgh is going to be tough as long as they are healthy. The reason, a big reason why we beat them late in the year last year was, the fact that they weren't healthy, but they still hung in there. Denver on the road, I think is what I'm seeing. That's going to be tough. And, then you got New England and Miami. So, I mean, it's a tough schedule. I mean, 9 wins is, that's probably right on by Vegas. I mean, I would say, the people saying 10-6, I think we would need some things to go our way to be 10-6. But I think the big key, like you said, Mike, is you got to take care of those division games.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to put you on the spot, right? This is the $64,000 question, and I need a yes or a no, and I need to waffle on it. Are the Buffalo Bills going to win the AFC East?
Yes.
Oh, look at the pain in his face. He doesn't want to say.
Yes, I'm skeptical, but I do think they will, because I don't trust Cam Newton, and I don't think he does stink, and I don't trust Cam Newton.
Kev's getting moist. I can see him. He's getting ready. I think.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk to Fitz yet. That's the Jets. The Jets. I think the Jets. I hate to say it, but until they get rid of Adam Gase, they're gonna be bad. And I think they could be worse than what they thought Miami should have been last year. And Miami's got some decent coaching in there. And they could steal some games. So I think it's definitely going to be a 2-horse race in the division. Miami definitely is going to be better. I think they could be a 5-6 win team, maybe even 7. But I think the big key for the Bills is going to be, can we beat New England at home or on the road? And how Cam Newton adjusts to a Bill Belichick coaching. That's the big thing. So I think the Patriots, they're going to be tough, and I think they're going to be our competition. But I think, like we said, division games, you got to win those division games. If you don't win them, you're screwed. Yeah, absolutely.
So, Ryan, thanks for coming on the show. We definitely appreciate it. Good luck to you and the Buffalo Bills. I think it's one of the big storylines this year is, can we see finally a changing of the guard in the AFC East? I think everybody's kind of watching that to kind of see this Tom versus Bill thing, which I know we'll talk about with Kevin in just a second. But good luck to your Bills. We'll see where they end up.
All right, thanks guys. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Go Josh.
You're still in that Josh Allen train.
Listen, what's right is right. I say he's going to be a good player. He's got a good arm. He's got to learn a little bit more. He runs around.
You know what it is, though? I don't disagree with you. He has to get more accurate.
Yeah.
Because last year, that defense helped them a lot, and they left a lot of points on the table. because that defense was really good last year, and it's hard to replicate that. And we will see where they end up.
Yep.
Coming up next, guys, if you haven't checked out JDF Sports, they are good friends of ours. They run a phenomenal podcast network, which is growing just like ours is, which I absolutely cannot tell you how much I love to see guys that I know and care about do really, really well at what we're doing. It's a lot of fun. They do a great job. So definitely, if you haven't seen JDF Sports, take my advice and go check them out. And you're going to see a familiar face when you get there. The president, I believe, I don't know his actual title. I don't know if he's like one of those like warlords or whatever they call it over there. But I want to bring on Kevin Fitzmaurice from JDF Sports. Brother, welcome into the
What's up, Fitz?
What's going on, fellas? Brian and Mike, it is a pleasure to finally be on the Sports Box. I've been waiting for this. I have been sitting backstage anticipating my anticipated debut. I know, Brian, you and I have talked about it. Mike, it's finally a pleasure to meet you. I've seen the work you guys do. Everyone at the Sports Box, what an amazing team. The growth you guys have had, the guests you guys have had, unreal. I love seeing you guys prosper, and JDS Sports is right there with you, supporting you along the way. It's been awesome.
Thank you.
And they will all take over the room.
I got to say, it is your pleasure to be on the show. So absolutely. So.
I love being here. I'm so grateful that you guys had me on to talk to Patriots and to just be on the network. The things you guys are doing, the growth, like I mentioned, the way you guys have lined out shows. You guys have helped us out along the way, shown us StreamYard, things like that. So it's a pleasure to finally be on the show.
Absolutely. We've been a big fan of everything going on over there. We love seeing the growth. Talk of the town, though, is the New England Patriots. Listen, it's a big year. It's a weird year, but it's a big year for the Pats. So we talk about what they did last year, and really, you can just because it doesn't even matter. It's a completely different team. 12-4 a year ago. Obviously, they won the division. They cost me money when they lost to the Titans, obviously, in the wild card round, because I don't know who the hell saw that coming. Sure as hell wasn't me. Offensively, they were 7th in points, 15th in yards, 8th through the air, 18th on the ground. But defensively, as stout as ever. Number 1 in the league in points, number 1 in the league in yards, 2nd against the pass, and 6th against the run. Obviously, a couple of big name subtractions led by Thomas Brady down to Tampa Bay.
There it is.
Mike's moist about that one.
Baby.
They also
Florida.
They also lost Kyle Van Noy and Jamie Collins from the defense, but they did bring in a former MVP in Cam Newton to battle for the job with Jarrett Stidham. We'll see how that one works out, but you hear all the good things out of camp right now. They had no first-round pick. They traded down, and the over-under is still 9.5, which is still tops in the division. Fitz, it's like the day after tomorrow, right? Remember the movie, like when everybody, like the world's going to end and they're trying to find a way out? Tom Brady's no longer New England Patriot, and it's going to be it's so weird that a pandemic took over and there's going to be no fans to watch. That's how weird it was.
Yeah, I want to jump in for 1 second here. So
get moist.
I'm not going to get moist, but I'm just going to tell you, Fitz, if you think that Tom Brady leaving and now Cam Newton is going to come in and is going to do better, well, this is what I have to say to that.
Justin Thomas, after his excellent approach shot, ran all the way toward the back of the green for birdie.
Dude, you've got to be fucking kidding.
That's what I got to say to that, Fitz. Come on, man. Cam Newton stinks.
Cam Newton, okay? This is a guy who, in 2015, with Jonathan Stewart, Corey Brown, Ted Ginn Jr., and Greg Olsen, passed for 3,800 yards and 35 touchdowns, rushed for 635 yards and 10 touchdowns, and won an MVP.
Right, that was 5 years ago.
I get that. He's had a lot of injuries since then. He's been off and on, but those Panthers teams have not been very good. They've had Christian McCaffrey and they've had an aging Greg Olsen, okay? He now joins a team that, no, they don't have a great roster, but those guys, Ted Ginn Jr., Corey Brown, Ed Dixon, Greg Olsen, those are now going with Julian Edelman, N'Keal Harry, Mohamed Sanu, Sony Michel, James White, an okay offensive line. They do need to improve in some areas, but he joins a team where Josh McDaniels helped Tim Tebow beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs. And the things that Josh McDaniels is going to be able to do now with Cam Newton that he never had to do with Tom Brady is going to open up the offense. And I don't think they're going to, there's Patriot fans that are like, oh, this is going to be insane. They're going to win 10 games. They're going to win 12 games. I think they're sitting at a solid 9 wins right now. They have an extremely tough schedule. We'll break it down. But they have Bill Belichick. who just for some reason always seems to find a way to get things done. And even when he had a guy like Matt Castle, the only time that there was no Tom Brady, besides the 4-game suspension for the Cleveland Browns, they still won a decent amount of games, and it was just because it was Chad Pennington went out for the Miami Dolphins and won the whole division. Bill Belichick is going to find ways to get things done. He always seems to do this. It's almost every single year people sit down and look at the Patriots and say, this is going to be the year they take the step back. They start the season out slow. They struggle in September because Bill doesn't care. He wants an extended preseason. He never had a preseason this year. Maybe they'll lose games into October, but they're going to find a way to get it done. They still have, in my opinion, one of the better secondaries in the league. J.C. Jackson's a very underrated corner. You bring in Joanne James, I think, or Joanne Williams, excuse me, their pick from last year. They moved him in the safety position to take over for Daron Harmon, who now went to Detroit. That's going to be a nice fill in there. You still have Devin McCourty, Patrick Chung. I get it. Kyle Duggar has been showing out at camp. Their second-round pick this year. Their front seven still needs some work. They lost some big names. You lost Orlando Roberts. You lost Dante Hightower. Now he's sitting out. You lost Kyle Van Noy. Huge loss to the defense, bigger than a lot of people would even imagine. An absolute dog on the defensive side. Miami got a great linebacker. Their front seven still needs a lot of work. I totally understand that, but they have guys that can step up. Chase Winovich had like 8 or 9 sacks last year. Wicked underrated, quiet guy out of Michigan. They brought in his teammate Uchi, who is going to go alongside him, who could be a guy that could help, step up. Jonathan Simon, a dude they got from the Buffalo Bills, another name of a player out there that could potentially step up and really help the defense. And on the offensive side of the ball, I've never been a big Cam Newton fan, but I will say this. Cam Newton needs to play the best football he has ever played in his entire life right now, because if Cam Newton doesn't get it done in New England, he will never get a starting quarterback job unless someone gets hurt ever again in his career. So he has to go out there and he has to play the best he's ever played. He's on a vet minimum. This dude is bidding on himself. Bill Belichick is not a tank for Trevor type. He is going to make sure that he wins as many games as he can. He puts up the fight because that's just the type of guy Bill Belichick is. He's extremely petty. And I think he's very, very petty. And I think that bringing in a guy like Cam Newton to compete with Stidham, the Patriots loves Jarrett Stidham. I think that they have Jarrett Stidham in their future plans, but he's not where they want him to be right now.
He's not ready yet.
Mike. So he's not where they want him to be right now. So you bring in a guy like Cam Newton on a vet minimum, which when it's all said and done, this could be one of Bill Belichick's best acquisitions ever. A former MVP, 5 years out, former MVP. You bring him in for a vet minimum. In the ceiling for Cam Newton, this is a win-win for the Patriots. Cam Newton comes in and balls out, puts together a great season. They go on, they win the division. Or Cam Newton comes in, absolutely stinks. They start Jarrett Stidham. They play a little bit of Brian Hoyer there. I know Bill Belichick already said he's not against using a platoon of quarterbacks this year and starting different guys week in and week out. You can, because you don't have that huge salary dump in a quarterback. So you can start whoever you want any week. It doesn't matter. You're not taking that L if you're starting Stidham or Hoyer or Cam Newton, because they're all getting paid around the same amount of money. Cam Newton might be the cheapest guy in the roster.
Right.
So I feel like the potential is so good. N'Keal Harry, a guy that never really got to get it done last year. Injuries kept him out. And Tom Brady sat out all at camp, so he never got to build chemistry with him. N'Keal Harry's another guy. Mohamed Sanu brought in midway through the season, ankle injuries toward the tail end of last year. Never really got to learn the Patriots offense is hard to learn. So you're bringing these guys, and they're not getting a lot of experience. You have an aging Julian Edelman, who's the veteran, the one that's going to lead them. They're struggling at the tight end position, big time. But where their strength is right now is the running back position. Damian Harris out of Alabama from last year, looking like a machine at camp. Going to get a lot of goal line work. Remember Garrett Blount a couple years ago rushed for like 22 touchdowns. I don't think Damian Harris is going to do those big of numbers, but I think he's going to be a guy that gets a lot of goal line work. You got James White, who still catches a lot of footballs, and Sony Michel was just 100 yards shy of 1,000 yards last year. And you have Rex Burkhead, and now Lamar Miller. Right. So there is a lot of rushing on that team for a very mobile quarterback in Cam Newton. I think that they're going to switch, and they're going to be slower. They're going to be hard defense, and they're going to be a run-heavy team this year.
The only thing I'm going to tell you is I agree with pretty much whatever you're saying, but the whole thing about Cam Newton to me is you talk about 5 years ago, he was an MVP. Okay, number one, it was 5 years ago. Yes. Number two is he hit the wall to me is when he started to get hit and they didn't start calling anything. He kind of just quit on that team. And to me, for a guy with this much talent and this much ability, and for him to just say, you know what, I don't even want to be here anymore. That could happen at any time. Now he's with a team that he wants to be with. Yeah, they've been in the spotlight. He's got Bill Belichick. He's got all this stuff. If it starts to go wrong for him there, it's going to go very wrong for him there because he's going to have the same attitude. He's going to bail out. And I just don't think he's that kind of quarterback anymore to make a lot of things happen like he did before. He doesn't want to run. He does not want to run because he's afraid to get hit. He'll just throw the ball out there and sling the ball all over the field, kind of like Winston did, and get picked off here and there. So he better learn that in the Bill Belichick system. But if anybody, like you said, is going to get anything out of him, it's Bill Belichick. Because if they release him or dump him, big deal. You get rid of another guy.
You haven't lost anything.
And they won't put Stidham in there anyway.
And I agree with everything you said, Mike. And one of the biggest things that come to mind is that everyone knows that Super Bowl play with the fumble.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Where he just gave up. That's in the Super Bowl. That's on the biggest stage. If I can't trust you then, when can I trust you?
Yeah.
But I've never been a Cam Newton fan. I've always disliked him strongly. Now he's my quarterback.
Me too.
And now he's my quarterback. And though I don't like him as a person, I still think that he has a tremendous talent in the sense of, like you said, when he wants to do it, he can still do it.
Right.
Now it's can they motivate him to actually get it done in New England, to actually put together a good season? Because he even said, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. He knows that it's done after this year. He's playing for a contract. He's playing selfishly.
Well, he's also saying the right things too. So.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. He's saying the right things. Now he's with Bill Belichick. He's got to make sure we see what Tom's saying now. Tom's out there. Yep. Tom's out there saying whatever he wants. He goes on Howard Stern. He starts talking about, the things he sees in locker rooms, the smoke.
Yeah.
Cam Newton now has to say the right things. And Bill Belichick did come out and say, Cam Newton's the hardest worker I've seen. But let's not forget, he's also said that about 10 different guys over the past couple of years. That doesn't mean jack at all. This is, a classic Bill Belichick quote to say, Cam, you're doing well.
Yeah.
He's having fun at camp. He's dancing. Let's see what really can happen with Cam. But like I said, it's a no-brainer. The ceiling is very high for Cam Newton, and the floor is very low for Cam Newton. Depends on what he wants to do. No-brainer. Then you start Stidham, he gets experience, and then the Patriots now had an offseason. If the Texans can't re-sign Deshaun Watson, you have an offseason where Deshaun Watson's available. There's a couple of quarterbacks that are coming out.
Rodgers,
100%, another name that's going to be floating around. There's going to be a lot of quarterback changes. I think the Patriots are like, you know what? Let's put all of our eggs in one basket. But then they don't have to spend the money for it, so it's not necessarily doing that.
And not even that. If he does sign elsewhere, they get a comp pick. And the QBs get big deals, and that's what they're based on. But I'm going to give you a hot take here. I mean, you can say all you want to about their offense, and there's question marks all over the place, and we're going to find out what those answers might be. But at the end of the day, the biggest defensive weapon this team has had the entire time has been the mind of Bill Belichick. And these superstars go off somewhere else, and they do absolutely nothing when they leave New England. Look at Trey Flowers in Detroit. Did absolutely nothing. Coaches who leave New England go off
Jamie
and
Collins.
do absolutely nothing.
Jamie Collins went to Cleveland, did jack, then came back to New England and was a star linebacker again. Now he's off in Detroit.
Eagles fans get pissed that Patrick Chung's like semi-useful up in basically when he was in Philadelphia. Yeah. So, I think the number is interesting. We'll go through the schedule here in a minute, but the fact that they're the highest over-under, I don't know if that's a Patriot bias or because they're trying to drag you along or just because at the end of the day, the defense is still the defense. The defense hasn't changed that much. They're plug and play with that. They've never had necessarily elite talent, maybe outside of a couple of guys that they brought in, but it's Bill. It is getting them in the right position, and however he gets, I don't care. Listen, you want to film somebody, what you got to do? I don't care, but it works. And this was the number one defense in the league last year. In a year with some really good defenses, they were number one. It wasn't as if they were winning on Tom Brady's arm last year. So again, I
didn't keep a lot of guys, Brian, from that previous year. So that just even proves your point even more that it's not like it's the same defense playing together. They had to put some guys interact together, and he came up with a good defense. I mean, that's what it is. I
think it's like one of those things where, like, don't prematurely count this team out. Let them do what they're going to do. I mean, this team, again, not long ago, went 11-5 with what's a stupid freaking name? I remember right now. Idiot quarterback who went to Matt Castle. So Bill finds a way. You want to bet on Bill's demise, you're going to lose those bets more often than not. The same way I lost on Tennessee in the playoffs. But I just, as I mentioned to Ryan, that's why I wanted to put Ryan on the spot with the Bills. Like, are they going to win this division? And again, with everything going on, he's still waffling on it, and that should speak volumes. Nobody wants to be the one to call the end of the Pats before it happens. You have to see it.
Right. And it's been happening for the last bunch of years. Yeah.
Exactly, Mike. And here's the thing with, and I don't want to sound like an asshole here, but Tom Brady, towards the tail end of his career, he is the smartest quarterback I've ever seen play. And he wins so many games because as soon as you give it away to him, it doesn't become chess anymore. It becomes checkers. That's what Ray Lewis said. And I think that speaks volumes for the type of player Tom Brady is. He's going to put you in situations. But what happens is towards the end of his career, Tom Brady starts to throw these really nice wheel routes to James White. And he finds Rob Gronkowski down the seams in the middle. And he finds Julian Edelman crossing over, the front. Tom Brady never had to make these athletic, crazy, wonderful throws. He made them, but he never had to, because that's the offense that Josh McDaniels made. For the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen a shift in New England, and it hasn't really been that, in your face, but they run a lot. And it's prominent when you bring in a guy like Lamar Miller after you already have Sony Michel that you drafted in the first round over Lamar Jackson. And then you brought in Isaiah Wynn right after, his teammate in college. You sign Rex Burkhead to an extension, and you still have, in my opinion, Super Bowl MVP James White on your team. They're going to run a lot more. So that's what they did with Tom Brady towards the end. And then Tom Brady had to make these West Coast style throws in these wonderful mismatches that New England loves to do. They love to find out where your corner is. They'll move Rob Gronkowski out wide. Then he'll bring him in tight. They'll figure out who's on him. And if the mismatch is good, bam, Tom Brady's going to find him.
Yeah.
Cam Newton is a guy that doesn't win with his mind. He wins more with his talent and his ability. So I think adding him to this system, it's gonna put New England in a different situation, and those clutch moments won't be like it. Like, I will now be nervous, because before I was cool as a cucumber for the last 2 minutes of the game because we had Tom Brady. Now it's, oh my God, we really need to get this done. But during those games, Cam Newton is now going to have his athletic ability, and I think when it's all said and done, the way that they can line Cam Newton up and put him in different situations is a lot different from what they could do with Tom Brady. And I think it opens up the offense a little bit more. I'm not saying that Cam Newton's going to produce better than Tom Brady or anything like that. They're going to be able to use him in ways that they've never been able to use Tom. And that is going to be a very lethal weapon. And that's where I think having Cam Newton is something that gets me excited, because his work ethic is strong right now. I get that, but his work ethic has been piss poor in the past. And his decision making, like we talk about, where he's not jumping on fumbles and he's given up in games because he's getting hit too much and he's just given up on the offense. I agree 100% with what you said, Mike. I think that is absolutely spot on. It's just now with this team, like we talked about with the defense, what's the one thing that's changed that has been the same throughout this entire defensive shift that they've brought in guys on? It's Bill Belichick's at the helm.
Scheme.
So you have a guy like Stephon Gilmore who has never really played in a Patriots. They've never had a guy of his caliber. This dude wins a defensive MVP. Now you have him alongside two up and coming great corners. You have a guy in Devin McCourty who is just an absolute dog on the field. Patrick Chung, he stepped out. I talked about that earlier. But they still have this core of guys. Dante Hightower is the biggest name that they lost. Kyle Van Noy, obviously, and Jamie Collins leaving. But Kyle Van Noy was a linebacker in Detroit that was doing okay before he joined New England. Jamie Collins was great in New England, went to Cleveland and got cut, and then came back to New England, was great again. These guys aren't going to go to these teams and be these miraculous players. These guys are going to go to teams. They're going to get their checks. Daron Harmon, a guy that got a ton of picks for New England, he got traded to Detroit. I don't see Daron Harmon doing that same type of stuff. They have the guys that they want on the defensive side. So say whatever you want about the people who have left town and come in and whatnot. The same thing is the same there. It's Bill Belichick is at the helm of this defense, and they are going to be a run-heavy team. They're not going to put up a ton of points, but they're going to annoy the hell out of you, and they're going to control the line of scrimmage, control the tempo by running the ball, and play hard-nosed defense. They're going to play old-school football.
Interesting schedule.
It is a very interesting schedule because I tell you what, if they don't win week one, it's gonna be bad. So it's a tough first five before the bye week. I think if they can find a way to be 3-2 by winning the home games, losing the road games, I think you're probably okay with that. But their stretches here, I mean, it's a first place schedule, right? You have to go to San Francisco. You host San Francisco. You host Baltimore.
But I mean, you come out of the bye week and you play San Fran, and then you go to Buffalo. I mean, that's not an easy road either.
They can make a vacation in LA weeks 13 and 14.
Yeah.
Just hang out there. No point in coming home.
Then they go on the road again. Then they go to Miami.
And then you're in Miami. And I mean, those let's not be frank, those Miami games in December are tough. And this Miami game was a lot better.
Brady always loses those games in Miami. It's crazy.
Always. And this is a up and coming Miami team. I think that Brian Flores is the real deal. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick can be a very scrappy quarterback for them, but they're eventually going to shift focus and go to Tua. So that's going to be a tough game. Buffalo in December, that's always a tough game, and it's a really hard schedule. Seattle. I mean, Russell Wilson has beaten us in Seattle plenty of times before. Sunday night game on the big limelight. Seattle's no joke. That's
and then you got DK Metcalf there, so he's going to be tough to contain too. So
and then right across from Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
And who knows what they're, if they're still looking at wide receivers, they're still out there talking about guys they could potentially bring in. Will Dissly, Greg Olson's over there now, better offensive line. You still have Russell Wilson, the Magic Man, and then they have a good run game. So that one's going to be tough, but I agree. You have to find a way to win at least 3 of these games before you go to the bye week, because when it comes back, it doesn't get any easier. It doesn't get
Brian, they're over under 9.
Their over is actually 9.5, which was tops in the division, which again, I just think is interesting given everything going on around this team. The constant is the constant. And there's always been this thing, was it Tom or was it Bill? What was the reason why they were so good? But the problem is, and I said this over the summer, if you're Tom and you're trying to prove it was you probably shouldn't do that at this point in your career.
Yeah.
Because Bill can coach until he loses his mind and is in a wheelchair in a hospital. He could be 80 years old and roll him out and call the plays. Like, it's not a matter of, you can't get too old to coach in the NFL. So,
although Tom didn't exactly go to Cincinnati, he's got weapons. He's got Mike Evans. He's got Gronk with him again. He's got Godwin.
Mike,
he's got weapons.
Went where all old people go to enjoy their twilight. He went to Florida. Where he went.
We'll see this year.
The defense is still the defense. Bill is still Bill. And you know what's funny? Fitz, actually wanted your take on this. So prior to Cam going there, I said it's 3-2 Flyers. The Islanders have scored a goal, 4 minutes left. Yep. Starting Stidham to me is productive either way. Either he's good, okay, cool. He's our guy we're going to go with. He's bad, okay, cool. We're going to get a quarterback in the draft. But Cam Newton comes along and provides this opportunity where he has a former MVP that if anybody can fix him, Bill can. And like you said, if Bill can't fix you, nobody can. So then he's going to play out his ass off for a deal, whether that be in New England or somewhere else, especially if these teams miss quarterbacks in the draft. They're going to get a pick when he leaves. I mean, I think the incentive's absolutely there. I don't want to say it's like Pac-Man Jones was in Dallas, but you don't have that many chances left. Not because he's a bad guy off the field. He's just an idiot. I mean, he shows up in a dress. This is not what I want. And Bill's going to put a stop to that. I actually want to see that happen. I'm curious how that works out. But tough schedule. Cam in his first year with no Brady, 9.5's the number. Where does it fall? You're on the spot. Will the Patriots continue dominating the East?
I got to say that I think Vegas is spot on here. I think that 9.5 is kind of where I'm sitting right now. I mean, there's a couple of games that I would expect, if I'm looking at the schedule here, Kansas City, that's going to be a really tough one. Denver is no joke this year.
I agree.
Obviously San Fran, Buffalo is still, they're fighting. They want to be the top dogs now. Baltimore has the easiest schedule. They're going to be riding high all season long with Lamar Jackson. Arizona is a team that's up and coming right now. One of those LA teams, those are going to be 2 tough matchups in LA. And then, like we talked about, Buffalo and Miami back in December. This is a really, really tough schedule. Really tough. You're playing, in my opinion, the top 3 teams in the NFL in the same season with Kansas City, Baltimore, and San Fran.
Right. Sure.
Deservedly so in the NFC. So I think that 9 games is kind of where I'm sitting at right now. I actually had them at 7 before they signed Cam Newton. I think Cam Newton bumps them up, gives them those 2 extra wins to help them with some of those tough teams like Denver and like in Arizona. So I would give them the favor. I think I'm going to sit at 9, but they have to really hit home on those division games because Buffalo is breathing down their neck and Miami isn't far behind either. But I still think this is New England's division to lose. I do.
Are they getting in?
I think they're going to get in.
Okay.
I think they're going to get in, but it's not going to be pretty after that.
It wasn't last year either. So,
it wasn't.
To be fair,
Fitz, I love you, but I'm going to tell you if you're banking on Cam Newton having a really good year there, I got to tell you this.
Justin Thomas, after his excellent approach shot, ran all the way toward the back of the green for birdie.
Dude, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
You really,
I am
That's the best cut of all time.
Of
Fitz.
all time, bro.
That
That is
is
awesome. Listen, how about we do this? We do a joint JDF Sports Box episode mid-season to see
down.
what
Absolutely.
I'm ready. Let's
Absolutely.
do it.
And again, for guys, if you don't know who Fitz is, you're missing out because they do wonderful stuff over at JDF. You know, the one thing I've said this before is it's really cool doing what we do is because we're able to meet really, really cool people to do kind of the same thing, that we're all in the same boat together, whether that's JDF or All Everything Entertainment or just some of the friends that we've made. It's just awesome to kind of like throw stuff off each other. Like the Islanders have tied the game. 2 minutes left.
Good thing I got the Flyer shirt on.
Yeah. I love seeing everybody just do well because, you know, it's good for everybody. And I love seeing people that I care about do well. And JDF's doing a wonderful job with Kev at the helm. I can't say enough good things. I pick up things from them. I think they pick up things from us, and everybody gets better, and it's awesome. And I give those guys, if you have not gone to JDF Sports, like their page. We share their stuff sometimes. I can't say enough good things.
Brian and Marty, you guys are awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me on. You guys keep grinding, keep building the Sports Box. Everyone who's following them, make sure you guys are tuned into what the Sports Box is doing because they are taking off. And if you're not on their train right now, you already missed the stop. You guys are awesome. I'm blessed to be on the show. We will be in touch soon. We got to have both you guys on JDF Sports. Thank you for having me and let me talk some Patriots.
Absolutely.
Camp stinks.
I love it. See you guys later.
Take care. Listen, they're a very interesting team. They're a very interesting team because so many question marks, but Bill's Bill. And I just don't think that you can make these proclamations that they're done because Tom's gone.
I mean, he does lay it out. He does lay it out good. They still have some talent there, and they still, you know, could do something with Cam. But we've had this conversation. 2015 was a long time ago, Brian, and I don't believe in Cam anymore. He quit on his team. I don't think he's there to really have the effort to win. I think he's there just to say, hey, I'm a Patriot. Hey, here I am.
But to be fair, it's Bill Belichick. You're not really buying Cam. You're buying what Bill can do with Cam.
Yeah.
To be fair. So we go from a team that's really, really well coached to a team that's just not very well coached. And we stay in the
He's probably real happy to come on now.
And we bring up the New York Jets, and we want to bring on a good friend, a season ticket holder who I was lucky enough to go to a game last year. I mean, not so lucky because the Cowboys lost, but I was happy enough to go to his seats. I went to MetLife for a non-wrestling event for the first time, by the way, because I've only been there for WrestleMania twice, and I was able to go to the Jets-Cowboys game, which still pisses me off. But we'll bring on a good friend, Joe Rixon. Joe, welcome into the Sports Box.
Hey, Joe,
thanks for having me on, guys. You got me following up Fitz. That's a tough act to follow there.
Well, I think it's New England generally. I mean, I think they've been a hole in your side for so long. I think like part of you wants to really root for the Bills right now because you just want somebody else to beat them. You just want to be beaten by somebody.
You know it, but like you said before, Bill's also Bill. It's going to be a tough throne to take because I think he's going to. You know, you said too, he's petty. So I think he's gonna throw everything but the kitchen sink at that team this year, and until the Pats are dethroned, I don't really have confidence in anybody else. I'll believe it when I see it.
Joe, you know more than anybody. I mean, the games that the Bill would go up against the Jets and just do weird stuff, like the thing that they were just trying to kill clock and just pretty much he has like a Jets voodoo doll. I'm convinced of this.
I'm seeing ghosts. Remember, I'm seeing ghosts.
Yeah. But the Jets also like they give him the opportunity. Like you say stuff like that never goes away. But it's the Jets, and we're going to talk a lot about the coaching staff because I don't like them.
I don't either.
They were actually they were a surprising 7-9 last year. Third in the East, didn't make the playoffs. The offense was not good, which I'm going to talk about. They were 31st in points, 32nd in total offense. You remember there's only 32 teams in the NFL. 29 through the air, 31st on the ground. Better defensively, 16th in points, 7th in total D, 17th against the pass, and 2nd against the runs. They were very stout against rushing attacks. They did add some pieces to their offensive line. George Fant, Connor McGovern, also brought in Joe Flacco to sit the bench and make sure it doesn't fly away so you can keep it down. Couple big name subtractions, though. Jamal Adams is gone. Robbie Anderson is gone. Demaryius Thomas, who really didn't play much, but bigger name. Center Ryan Khalil is also gone. They went with Mekhi Becton, offensive tackle out of Louisville, 11th overall, who probably the most mocks had ahead of where they went. I think people thought he might go even as high as 4 to the Giants, but he ended up falling to 11. And again, that's just Joe Douglas being Joe Douglas, building up that offensive line to keep their quarterback upright. So before I get to the coaching staff, I was on AEE the day that Jamal Adams got traded, and the part of it, I actually said, I think both teams find a way to lose that deal because I think both there's not good about it for both sides. The part that's got to be frustrating, not so much that they got 2 first-round picks. I know you're happy with the return, all things considered, but it just feels like a constant rebuild for the Jets. Like at some point, there's got to be some sort of a finished product where you say, let's go with this team. It just constantly feels like they're spinning their wheels, whether that's, recycling coaches, the GM, high-priced guys who go up and like a Le'Veon Bell, obviously, who just does not pan out, picks that just are abysmal. They end up just not working out, and the guys that do want to leave. It's still the New York market, so that part doesn't make sense to me. Just your overall thoughts on, taking a guy 6th overall and a couple years later getting 2 first-round picks for him.
I think you're starting to see that the Maccagnan regime before Joe Douglas really had no vision for this team. I mean, every year it felt like it was piecemeal, and they were all worried about their jobs, so just constantly just throwing things up against the wall. There was no real strategy in place. And the one thing that I think Joe Douglas brings a little bit more to the table is you can kind of see where he's going. He's investing a little more in the O-line, which is still not very good. Even with those additions, they're still not great. I think preseason they're projected, I think Pro Football Focus having 27th out of 32 to start the year. So it's still not good. But at least you can see the investments he's making. The other weird dynamic is, people don't talk about this enough, is the coach doesn't answer to the GM. The Jets have that weird situation where the coach answers to the owner and the GM answers to the owner. And they never seem to get a coach and a GM that are on the same page with each other. Like, they're completely different. Joe Douglas is a little more photogenic, fun. He's friends with the media, and then Adam Gase is crazy eyes and is terrible with the media, and the players don't like him. So there's just a really weird dynamic there that I wish organizationally they would fix, because I feel like if the GM had the power to go out and get a coach to fit his style and his team, then you're better off. But I think they hired Adam Gase before they even went out and they hired Adam Gase and they fired their GM. It's just a dysfunctional organizational leadership at the top, and they'd be better off, the Johnson would be better off ceding control of the football stuff to the GM and letting him run it, because I have more confidence. Adam Gase is obviously not the coach of the future of this team. So if they don't let Joe Douglas go out and find the coach that's going to fit the type of player he's going to bring in, then this is it's going to be the same thing year after year after year. So I think Joe Douglas is going to get plenty of time, because Maccagnan really didn't know what he was doing. He, whiffed on how many first-round picks. So I think Joe Douglas is going to get a lot of time. It's just, at the end of the day, it's more about how the team is going to operate. Is Joe Douglas going to have the power and control when Adam Gase goes? Because he's going to go, let's be real, in a year or two, especially my prediction on this year, he's going to go. Is Joe Douglas going to have the ability to go out and get a coach that's going to fit his style?
So, but why isn't he gone? This is the question. This is my question just about Gase. Why is he still employed? I'm going to just do this for your benefit. Why is he still employed? What is the point? What the hell is the point?
I really do think it's like an ego issue at the top. They don't want to admit they made a mistake. And to me, the big warning sign was when Gase came in and the media asked him about the Le'Veon Bell signing. He was really lukewarm about it. And it's one of these, like, Le'Veon Bell is a transcendent talent. He's a great player. He's a workhorse. He wants the football. He's excited to be there. And Adam Gase, throughout his career, has had this weird obsession with his guy. It's got to be his guy. Le'Veon Bell isn't his guy. Well, that's not how it works in the NFL. If you want to dictate your roster, go coach in college football. If you want to be the little dictator, gets to pick and choose who plays for you, that's fine. It doesn't work that way here. Like, any other coach in the league would walk into the room and say, I got Le'Veon Bell. I'm going to use that guy. I'm going to find a way to get him involved. And there's these flashes where he kind of does, and you're reminded, like, oh, Le'Veon Bell's pretty good. He can put Le'Veon Bell in the slot, and he can go catch a football 25 yards down the field. And if you give him the football to run, he's going to get better. If you look at Le'Veon Bell's numbers, he's better on his 25th, 26th, 27th carry than he is in 10, 11, 12. How many games did he have, like 15 or less carries last year? Perfect example, the week of Thanksgiving, they go on the road and they lose to the winless Bengals in Cincinnati, okay? The Bengals have the worst rush defense in the league. He should have been handing the ball off to Le'Veon Bell. play after play after play after play. Le'Veon Bell runs for 15 yards, he gets smoked 22-6. And then what makes it even worse is you look at the, another team in that division, Flores over at Miami, he actually has a giant family dinner with his coaching staff on Thanksgiving and has a great family dynamic. And they say, we're going to take some of the week off and we're going to spend some time with our families. And they go and they beat the Eagles as an underdog. Adam Gase admits he doesn't even spend time with his family on Thanksgiving. He watched film all week and then loses 22-6 to the Bengals. He misses Thanksgiving with his family, says he invests all that time in film and then gets smoked. It's just the perfect dynamic of just how bad he is. And it goes to his own football team. Would we be saying he was so bad if Greg Williams didn't do such a great job last year with literally a who's who of who cares on the defensive side of the football? I mean, he literally had nobody. I would go to games. I'm a Jets fan. I follow the team. I'll go to games and I'd be like, I spent the whole first quarter saying, who's that guy? Who's that? I had no idea they were activating practice squad guys, and they're finishing top 10 in the league in defense. It's one of those things where it shows you what leadership when one side of football has such leadership in Williams and he's making it work. And I don't know if he's going to have the ability to do that. I think teams are going to have an idea of what he's going to do based on the fact he's going to be in a very similar situation this year. And then Adam Gase, the other side of football, wasting Sam Darnold and wasting Le'Veon Bell just makes it more obvious he's not the guy. And they'd be better off getting rid of him. They're not. They'll probably stink it up this year, and then they'll drag their feet another month or so, and then fire him. Fire him a month after the season when all the other good coaches are gone, which is what they tend to do. But it's just really indicative when you look at that team and you see how good one side of football is that he doesn't touch, and how great that side is. Right. And the other side that he has his hands all over and is a control freak, and they're finishing bottom 3 in the league in just about every offensive category with a quarterback I think can be pretty good.
Joe, and that was my question to you. With the wide receiving core that this team has, you bring guys like Rashard Perriman, Dante Moncrief, Chris Hogan, Jameis Crowder. Is this team turning a little bit into a Washington team that goes out and spends money but just doesn't know how to spend it and buys the wrong kind of guys for this system?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you look at and half of those guys that you just mentioned are already hurt in camp, so it's not even he's already been. I mean, the Jets, you can argue, have had one of the worst training camps because of injuries. I mean, it's been bad. Yeah. So Darnold's not even getting work with these guys, and so it's really, really frustrating because, like you said, they're spending money in places that don't make sense. I'd rather them just. And this is where I think the first round draft picks will help, because then they're going to go offensive line heavy again next year, because that's obviously where the biggest need is. But you're right. I really just think they're in a tough position. I don't really fault Joe Douglas. I think he said he came into a tough situation, but you're right. They're not spending money in necessarily the smartest places. I think they're just spending it kind of because they have to, and they want to be able to tell Sam Darnold when he's getting ready to run down his contract, well, look, we went out and we spent money on some of these guys, even though most of them are going to be hurt, and they're still not very good, and his O-line's still not very good. So
instead of making quality picks, they're just trying to get too good too fast, and that's really, really hard to do, especially as poor as the Jets have played in the last couple of years. It's hard to get that team going like that.
To combine both of your points, if you just hit a draft pick every so often, you wouldn't have to go and sign these big guys.
That's valuable.
Not that CJ Mosley's a bad player, but is that what you really need? You need to put that much money into a linebacker when, frankly, to me, I think that's a dying position in football. I think it's not as important as it was 10, 20 years ago. So to pay that guy that money. So, I mean, is that because you want to sell tickets? Is that your main concern? That's the part where they lose me, because you have a premier market in the league with all of the advantages, bestowed upon you, and you don't use it.
I mean, look at Luke Kuechly is a perfect example too. All these years with Carolina, look, he's out, got paid a ton of money. How did Carolina pay from that? Nothing.
And really. Mosley's not even going to be playing this year. He opted out. So I mean, that's the other problem that the Jets really have is, last year Mosley was a leader when he was healthy. Then it kind of fell on Jamal Adams. Really, they're looking at right now. Marcus May is going to be the leader of that defense. That's not very good.
I know it's a bit of a short sample size and a really kind of weird scenario, but have you seen enough from Darnold in the past couple of years? Given, I mean, obviously last year was kind of weird with the whole mono thing. I mean, of all things, the guy gets mono. I mean, just I'd rather he break his tibia.
That's destroyed for that too, by the way.
So, have you seen enough that you think it's in their best interest that when his contract comes due, for them to make him the face of the franchise moving forward, or is it another one of these? Because you look around the league, Josh Rosen was there for a cup of coffee. Now he's the third string in Miami. Josh Allen's doing fine. Baker, I don't even know what to make of Baker Mayfield the 2 years in. I don't think Darnold's been bad. I don't think Darnold's been good. He's got that USC quarterback thing kind of still over his shoulder because I never really pan out in the NFL. Just your gut right now. I mean, is this going to be the guy that they build around for the next decade, or are we resetting? Are we going to press the reset button again in a couple of years?
I mean, the tough part is I would be more optimistic if Adam Gase wasn't the offensive guru running the show behind him. I mean, the whole reason they even picked Adam Gase was because, Peyton Manning called and he gave a great word about Adam Gase and how great Adam Gase is. Adam Gase developed Peyton Manning. They're basically their two finalists were McCarthy and Adam Gase. I'm not huge about McCarthy, but I know McCarthy can develop a quarterback, right? At least that's we know that, what he did in Green Bay. Gase really hasn't proven anything with anybody. I think you saw last year, even when he had his weapons, the offense was still stagnant because Gase doesn't really know what he's doing. He doesn't run the football effectively. The offensive line isn't that hot. Gase is so predictable schematically. I mean, it was one of those things where, I actually felt bad for you at the Cowboys game because, Adam Gase outcoached Jason Garrett, which is I've never seen that before.
It's very low.
But it's one of those things where I would feel more optimistic if they had a better coach in there that could really develop him. And to be honest, they act like they're buddies. They like each other. I mean, I think you saw a lot on the sidelines last year where they went on that little run at the end of the season, the frustration between the two of them on what Gase was calling. It's tough to tell because he really hasn't had a lot of weapons. He hasn't had a good O-line. He still continues to make some really boneheaded plays. There were 2 or 3 games last year. At the end of the game, they were in it. They were driving, and he tried to do too much. The Miami game, for example, he threw the ball. They're getting ready to score, and he, fumbled the ball into the end zone. You're like, what are you doing, man? Just hold it and go out of bounds. But some of that might be that he's trying maybe a little too hard. He feels like he's got to do everything sometimes because, like I said, Adam Gase isn't sharing the caseload. And
I'll give you. I'm sorry.
A very good coach.
I'm sorry, Joe. I was going to say, I'll give you one better is when you do stuff like this, you blow Gase out of there, which they're eventually going to do. Now you're changing offensive coordinator for a young quarterback. Look what happened to Josh Rosen, destroyed him, going to team. I mean, I'm not saying he would have been a top 5 quarterback, but I think he would have been better than he was playing behind in a Cardinals team that he didn't get really a chance. And then going to Miami and didn't do anything there either. I mean, 2 bad franchises. Same thing with Darnold. I mean, now he could have another offensive coordinator and then maybe another one after that if they don't hit on that. And that's gonna ruin him. That's gonna ruin Darnold.
And he's been in trouble because, he didn't necessarily have the greatest head coach in Todd Bowles either. So he's really been screwed to start his career in regards to having 2 just really inept head coaches that don't know what they're doing.
Yep.
John Slugs, a question. Do you think they need a new offensive coordinator?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter as long as Adam Gase is running the show. We know Adam Gase is ultimately going to make all the decisions. So to me, it's just a different suit. It doesn't really make a difference. Adam Gase has proven that he doesn't know what he's doing. He's, like I said, not creative. And this obsession that he has with his guys and going out and trying to trade for his people, even though they haven't panned out, is just bonkers. So, I don't have any faith in anybody until they, like I said, it's not just Adam Gase, though. If that's what they've got to bring in, they've got to restructure the top and let Joe Douglas pick his guy.
Yep. My fantasy focus for the Jets is Chris Herndon. He had some hype around him last year. Then it all fell apart. He had a 4-game suspension to start the year. I think he played 1 game, got hurt, caught 1 ball for 7 yards, and that was the season. And I think that you look at some of those offensive numbers. I mean, that was, I think, something they were trying to build around, at least that escape valve, something for Sam Darnold to throw to, those short intermediate type things where maybe the receivers can get open. He's somebody who I think late in drafts is interesting, but we talk about them spending money. I mean, they're two starting outside guys right now are Perryman and Hogan, who came from the Bucks and the Pats respectively. I mean, these are not like elite guys. I mean, to what I said about Darnold, to be fair, it's not as if he's had the greatest of situations either. I mean, the surrounding cast has not been good, and he's going to get judged on that.
Yeah, and I think the problem with Herndon too, the one thing that does scare me is last year when he got hurt, you saw Griffin step up a little bit. And, is Adam Gase are they gonna split those reps basically? Is Herndon gonna have to prove his way back into the lineup? That's gonna be my concern with him. Are they gonna split that? But I'm like I said, I'm not very optimistic. But the O-line is getting somewhat better. It's still not great. I mean, Joe Ellis goes out last year and he gets Khalil, which you're like, it's better than nothing. That wound up not being great, but at the time, it couldn't have been any worse than what they did. So they're getting better at at O-line, but it's going to be another rough 2 or 3 years at least.
And I lean to your question about Darnold. Yeah, I mean, I think the question is going to be is, how do you judge what he is? I think he's going to get a contract. And I said this a year ago. I said, you don't put these guys when they get drafted high. I mean, Mike, you and Jameis, right? I mean, like they get opportunity after opportunity because guys don't want to be wrong about a pick that they invest so much in. So to me,
if you move on from Darnold, I mean,
no, I think that's a huge reset button. They're not going to do. I think they're going to
back 3 years.
Yeah, I think they're going to see it. Schedule's interesting. It starts off, these Bills Jets games are always weird. I remember, I think I bet them wrong every year. I think I always take one side, the other side wins. But it's a tough beginning because your second game you have San Francisco. You're not going to win that game.
This is a tough schedule for the Jets.
You go to the Colts. I don't see you winning that game. Like I don't. No. It's weird though, Joe, because I can't remember them winning 7 games last year. I don't know where the hell they won 7 games last year because I can only remember the one that I saw. But
and it makes you wonder if Darnold's healthy and they can squeak by 2 or 3 of those games when they're just totally bad offensively. They made the playoffs last year. Like it's one of those things. Like it makes you wonder, like what kind of wasted season last year was with their terrible coaching and the fact they had nobody on defense. That if Darnold is healthy and they can start off 3-3 basically to start the year, they make the playoffs. I mean, it's bonkers to think about, but it wasn't outside the realm of possibility.
What's interesting is they play Miami week 10 in Miami, and then they have a bye week. Then they play it again in week 12. That's
your coaching in.
Home and home set. That's nice. I like that.
Get your coaching in. Listen, the heart of the schedule, week 7 through 9 is going to make the season. I think they lose all 3. They go to Buffalo. They host Buffalo. Again, weird game. They go to Kansas City. They get New England at home. And as I said, I'm not ready to write New England off yet. I'm sure someone's going to write off Bill Belichick against Adam Gase. That's for sure. So to me, like that's where the story lies. And I there's a very good shot they go 0-3 in those games. I don't care what they do against Miami at that point, because if you go 0-3 in those games and you started out maybe 1-2, you're behind the 8 ball. Sorry, this game's on behind me. I'm seeing it's an overtime. I don't know what to make of it. And I think 7 just seems high to me. I don't think they're a 7-win team, even though they were a 7-win team last year, because I don't remember them being a 7-win team last year.
They're absolutely not a 7-win team. I don't have them winning a single road game this year. I don't. Okay. I don't look at this schedule, and I don't see a single road game in which they win. Usually I'm pretty optimistic they can split with the Buffalo. I don't think that's going to happen this year.
They could win the Rams game, believe it or not.
They could, but I don't have any. It's a road game, so I don't have any confidence. They struggled on the road last year too, and they were 2 completely different teams at times. So they're not anywhere close to 7 wins. They're not even.
I don't see it. I mean, in a year where we're just waiting for some team to maybe take that leap and go over New England, I don't think it's going to be the Jets. And it's unfortunately it seems like a wasted year because we kind of see we know how the movie ends, and the movie ends with Adam Gase getting fired, and it should have ended that way last year. We're just delaying the inevitable, pull the Band-Aid off, make the change that you need, and try to build, because it's literally this. And they've done this for way too many years.
Yeah. And like I said, I have them winning 4 games this year. And that, as much as it kills me to say that as a Jet season ticket holder, I'm glad I wanted to see that in person at least this year. So it's not necessarily a wasted season or guys going to have to spend. But yeah, they're winning. I think they're lucky if they win 4. They can win 3 games. I mean, this team, this schedule is not easy by any means. They got a lot of West Coast trips, which is not going to be easy.
Just say
I have them winning 3 or 4 games. I just don't think they have the leadership on the defensive side of the football with Mosley being out. Jamal Adams kind of took that over last year. I think he's a little bit addition by subtraction. I think you saw when they traded him, nobody on the team was really like, hey, good luck, Jamal. There really wasn't. It was radio silence on social media and Twitter from those guys. I just think they have the defensive leadership. I don't think they're going to have a good enough offense. We know they're going to be able to run the football, but is Adam Gase going to run the football? He's going to give the ball to Le'Veon. He's going to put his ego aside and actually let him do some work. But even if you do and you have a balanced offense, are the wide receivers going to be able to go out and get catch balls for Darnold? I don't know if that's going to happen. So like I said, I have them with 4 wins. They could win as few as 3 though. It wouldn't.
Joe, my last question, Joe, to you is if for whatever reason they get the first pick overall in the draft, do they go make I don't know about a mistake, but Lawrence?
He can't.
No, I don't.
I mean, you got to.
I don't. And based on Douglas's style, I think he's going to trade down for some O-line help, and I think he's going to take that pick and he's going to drop it down. He might trade that pick 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
You know the one thing Joe Douglas wouldn't do. And this I'm never going to forget this. So when they made the deal with Indy to go up from 6 to 3, they had no clue who was going to be there. No clue who was going to be there. So they were trying to, woo Kirk Cousins, who didn't go there. And it's like, when you make a deal of that magnitude, you're going up for someone. Don't tell me, oh, we love Sam. Well, clearly you loved Baker and you loved Josh Allen and Josh Rosen, because you didn't know who the hell was going to be there at 3. I don't even want to hear that nonsense. So it's just, again, I mean, it's like a dark cloud, and I root for him for your sake, because I don't. But it's like,
I'm with you on bad teams, man. I've suffered with the Bucks for years, so it's one day.
Like I said, I got some. Everybody before me was wearing their swag. We just moved. I have some Jet stuff in a box somewhere. I didn't even try to pull it out. It's not. This team doesn't deserve it. It's not worth it. Also, but thank you for having me, guys. A long time, first time. This is a lot of fun.
If you want to, go over your misery with us throughout the course of the season,
anytime, Joe. Anytime.
We'll definitely talk a little Jets with you.
Thank you again, guys.
Take care.
Have a good night.
They're a weird team. They're a weird team, because I don't know. It's just where are these guys getting 7 from?
And I can feel for them too, because the years I went through with the Bucks, just not looking for anything, having misery to look forward to. Brian, that schedule is brutal.
Yeah, it's not good.
No,
it's not good. We're going to go from a team, obviously, that has some problems to another team that has some problems, and so many problems that they changed the team's name.
Yes.
To the dumbest name I've ever heard in my life.
Ever.
Doug Anderson, big fan of the show, coming on to talk about the Washington football team. There's a Washington football team. Are you just
what's up, Doug?
The Washington football team?
It's a soccer team. It's real football. It's soccer.
They might be better with soccer.
There you go. We got a new coach. I mean, hey.
Yeah, it's a bad name. I was always a Redskin fan. I'll always be a Redskin fan, but we have a lot of problems.
Is it hail?
Off season. Nothing happened.
Yeah, hail to the football team.
I'm sorry.
Hail to the football team.
We're still singing hail. It doesn't matter.
Well, I'm a Florida State guy, Doug, so I guess I'm next with the Seminoles. So I mean, who knows? Who knows what's going on there?
Seminoles tribe said they're 100% in on Florida State.
There you go.
They're good.
Yeah. So I don't know, but then the football team's 0-0, but the Redskins last year were 3-13, 4th place in the division, didn't make the playoffs. The offense was not good. 32nd in points for, which again you'll remember, there's 32 teams in the league.
Yep.
31st in yards. 33rd.
There's no 33rd. Not yet. We'll see if they like to see if they want the
money. They had a team this year, sure.
32nd in passing, 22nd on the ground. Defensively, a touch better, but not by much. 27th in points, 27th in yards, 18th against the pass, 31st against the rush. They did add Kendall Fuller in the offseason, but they did also lose a bunch of guys. Case Keenum is no longer here, obviously, and we'll talk about why in a minute. Eric Flowers has left, and then they cut a couple guys. Josh Norman for football reasons and Darius Geist for not football reasons. They also spent the 2nd overall pick in the draft in defensive end Chase Young out of Ohio State. There were some questions as to, might they go and try to get a quarterback, even though they took a quarterback the year before, because everything changed. It didn't happen that way. So, I want to give you the floor here, because I know you want to just basically lay into this franchise. It really embodies what a complete and total disaster really looks like. I mean, the team name has changed, obviously, and it wasn't even like a good change. You couldn't even figure out a team name, so you took the dumbest name possible. The front office and the ownership is now under investigation for all sorts of horrible behavior.
You do have the comeback player of the year, though, with Alex Smith. I mean,
if he takes the field and takes
let the hate flow through you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. If he takes one snap, he should win. If you saw the ESPN video show, if he takes one snap, he should win comeback.
17 surgeries. I mean,
I don't care about Roethlisberger whatsoever.
Yeah.
It doesn't bode well for your franchise when they forced them to put in a see-through staircase and make your female employees walk down in skirts with no panties on, and you allow football players to work underneath those stairs.
Wow.
That's not a good thing for your franchise. The best thing to come out of it came out, I believe it was today. The league is taking over the investigation, and they may force Snyder to sell the team, which would be a huge win. It would be worth the year, because the number one person the league wants into ownership in the NFL is Jeff Bezos. which means he already owns the paper in Washington, and now he would own the franchise in Washington, and that would be perfect.
So, Doug, let me ask you right there before we get off of that. The deal with Snyder over these last, bunch of years he's had the team. I mean, I think he's the kind of owner like we were talking about with Joe that is a guy who will spend money. He doesn't mind going out and spend money, but he just doesn't spend it wisely. What is the deal? Is he just running the show and nobody else has input? Is that the way it's been?
He has his guys. He thinks he can put this together like a fantasy football team.
Yeah.
But real football doesn't work that way. Real football you have to know how to run out the clock in games. You have to know how to do things that aren't sexy that actually win you games. Yeah. Blocking and tackling being paramount among them. So it's not just the signings. There's no chemistry. There's no repercussions for bad signings. He'll sign somebody because he had a great year and then, oh, he's not my fault. Well, you don't do that. You need an adult in the room. Ron Rivera appears to be the adult in the room. I actually think that's great. Bruce Allen got fired, which is amazingly awesome. So it appears that because the league is standing over him, we have an adult in the room to oversee the franchise, which gives me hope.
The sad news on Ron, obviously, is he gets diagnosed with cancer. Apparently, it's extremely treatable. He wants to coach. I give the guy full credit for that. He's coming into a new spot. I think he kind of feels like he needs to, be that adult in the room, kind of like you said. But coaches like to win or lose with their guys. So my question here is, they put a first-round pick into Dwayne Haskins a year ago, which was kind of surprising a little bit because I didn't necessarily think that was what they needed to do, but neither here nor there. Your confidence level that he is the quarterback of the future, and again, I know the sample size is small. I know he's texting apparently on the sidelines or doing some kind of nonsense. That's just bad coaching. That can be fixed. But being that Ron wasn't there to draft him, we don't know what Ron's evaluation is on him. What is your concern? Is Haskins? You can say, yeah, like we've got that locked in.
We don't have that locked in. Okay. We have that nowhere close to locked in. When you're about to get your first win of the year, and your quarterback isn't ready to go on the field to take a knee because he's taking selfies with fans, and you have to send in your backup to take the knee, who's an adult.
Yeah.
That's a problem for your team. Mm-hmm. I don't care what you did the rest of the 59 minutes and 45 seconds of the game. You blew everything on that play. You showed me everything about you.
That's a maturity issue.
Having a great camp. Yeah. But I think the beauty part of the season is it's a wash season. They're going to start Haskins almost assuredly. They might give Alex Smith one start just as a thank you and God bless you for trying to help the franchise, because if he doesn't get hurt, they win the division that year. They were 6-2 when he got hurt. They win the division for sure. Because the NFC East is not good, and it hasn't been for years and years.
I am.
So Haskins, one of two things will happen. He plays great. They might have their answer. He plays terrible. The Redskins go 2-14, and they draft Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Great. There's your solution either way.
Similarly to what I said about Stidham in New England, either way, it's productive. Either he's your guy, or that he's not, and you're positioned to get your guy.
Correct. And that I don't have a problem with. There's an answer and there's a method. We have an actual person who's drafting who has football experience, and this has been his career and livelihood. And it's not something that he was doing reading the Washington Post for 5 years and says, I can do this, give me the keys to the car. And then wrecks your Ferrari leaving the parking lot.
Yeah, and you talked about, Doug, we got rid of Josh Norman, and this, you look at their secondary help, which they struggled with last year. They're very young in the secondary this year. So my question to you is, do you look at this team this year just trying to get through this season, whatever it is, and then worry about next season, or do you have any kind of hope or looking forward to something this year on this team?
Their defense will be a top 10 defense at least this year.
Okay.
I believe the defensive line is the best defensive line in the division, and I don't think it's close. I think they're going to get a lot of pressure. My prediction, I said when I saw the schedule come out, Carson Wentz is Kleenex, and I think Chase Young knocks him out of the game, first game of the season.
Okay.
And
I mean, you look at the depth chart. I mean, 2017 first round pick, Jonathan Allen, defensive tackle. 2018 first round pick, Deron Payne, defensive tackle. 2019 first round pick, Montez Sweat, defensive end. Chase Young, defensive end this year.
Ryan Kerrigan. Yep.
Like they have pedigree there.
Yeah.
But
Right.
really, I made this case going into the draft. I said, really, they should really like try to swap picks with Detroit, because Detroit needs a defensive end and they really need the elite corner. Like, how many years are you going to keep almost drafting duplicity on your defensive line? You'll make it really, really good at the expense of everything else. So it's kind of like, I mean, is it really that helpful? Because then it's these, contracts come up and you're just kind of in this rotation. I mean, I thought Chase was the best player in the draft. I'm not taking anything away from him.
I think you have to draft Chase Young. I think he could be an LT type, and I don't think you pass on somebody that could be like Lawrence Taylor. If it wasn't somebody of his caliber, I would have said, yeah, move down. And if they could have moved down to get a lot of other things, I might say yes. But if you have a front seven, when you include the linebackers that can deliver pressure, that'll make up for a lot of shortcomings in your secondary.
Yep.
And if Carson Wentz has to look over his shoulder because Chase Young sacked him twice and knocked him down 3 times, well, all of a sudden, he's not going to hold the ball as long, and he's going to get rid of it as soon as he can because he knows what's coming. Yeah. So to me, I think that's where the pressure is they're going to live and die with that. If they can get pressure, they're going to surprise a lot of people. If they can't get pressure, they're going to get killed.
Yeah, Doug, I couldn't agree with you more. That was the absolute best pick they could have made is Chase Young at that pick. There's no other guy. I mean, even though the Redskins, the football team may have needed some other guys in the O-line, they may have needed a receiver, whatever the case may be, Chase Young was the guy on the board. You needed to draft him if you're the Redskins. So
I think the biggest surprise actually from last year, who my fantasy focus is Terry McLaurin. I think he's a guy who came out of nowhere last year. He really had a great first game against the Eagles and then was kind of on the radar after that. I think he's probably the only guy on the offense that you can draft for your team, or even just as a general football guy, just looking at the team where you say, that's not a question. Like, I think I like what I have there. And he wasn't a highly drafted guy. I think he was a 3rd round pick or something like that. So it wasn't as if, 3rd round pick. So it wasn't as if like he came in with this ton of pedigree and you expected this. Like, he really kind of surprised people. He's the guy I think that if any of the fantasy guys want anybody on this team, I think that's really the one that you want.
Absolutely. I mean, they got him because they went to Dwayne Haskins pro day, and he threw to McLaren all day, and they went, hey, you know what? That wide receiver is really, really good. Let's draft him too, which worked out great. They drafted a couple young wide receivers this year with the same name, Antonio. So there's 2 of them, and they have the same initials, so it's AG and AGG. That won't get too confusing. But I think that they'll give him some people to throw to. I think they were smart not to sign, they got turned down for – by free agent and Dallas wide receiver, Antonio Cooper, I think it was, decided, not to go, stayed in Dallas. Great. Don't spend the money. Go
Amari Cooper,
receivers. Amari Cooper, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them will pan out. And now you pair him with McLaren. You have a couple young running backs you give a try. Now all of a sudden you're putting some pieces together. And that's what it is. We're a jigsaw puzzle with half the pieces missing. So you got to put pieces together when you can.
To say the very least. I'll load up the schedule here. I don't see too many W's, and I if you think they're going to win week 1, God bless you. Trust me, I would not be remotely upset about that.
You know what?
I didn't say they would win.
I think they have a chance to win that game. They have a chance to win that game. The Eagles' O-line looks terrible right now.
Yeah.
And with that front 7 that like Doug said, that front 4 that the Redskins have, with that O-line the Eagles have, Carson Wentz might be in for a long day.
The brutal part of the schedule to me starts right on Thanksgiving. I think that's got to be Thanksgiving. So they go to Dallas, then they go to Pittsburgh, then they go to San Francisco. They finally come home and it's Seattle.
Right.
I don't see a win there. I don't see a close game there. Maybe the Dallas game is a divisional rival.
And Carolina might need that game to get in, and so does the Eagles.
Carolina's not getting it anywhere.
Yeah, but Carolina's not making the playoffs.
Yeah, no. Any sort of like 500 or something they could be, I think it's shot in the ass those three
I can
or 4
see
games.
more than any team in the league, their ceiling to floor is bigger than any team in the league. I could see them winning 2 games, and I could see them winning 9 games, which is what I read online today. That they can
Wow,
go
9
9-7 make
games?
the playoffs. I don't see that, but somebody else did. And I could see that. The division is a very weak division.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not – the Giants are terrible. The Cowboys have question marks and a new coach.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles, Wentz gets hurt every year. I don't want to hear any nonsense from Eagles fans about how great Wentz is. Let him play a whole entire year before you talk about MVP once, please. He's won nothing. He has as many playoff wins as I have. I don't want to hear him talk. Sorry. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
So
no, I agree.
I think that, I don't know if they're going to beat the Eagles, but I can easily put together. I think 6-10 would probably be a good year.
Well, let me ask you this, though. And we have these discussions among the boys all the time when I say, listen, if you're not going to win, lose. I think 2-14 is the best outcome possible. I don't think you want to be in purgatory this year for the reason that you explained. Is if they're only okay and they're winning off the defense and Haskins hasn't solidified himself, I think that's the worst outcome possible. Actually,
no, it won't. Well, yes and no. You're right. If they're only winning because of the defense, that's problematic because now you're the Bears. Is what you've become.
Right. Absolutely.
So
Flowers
that's
win.
not a winning formula for you long term. But if you go 6-10 and Haskins looks really, really good, and you lose, 3 close games, well, now you figured out Haskins is the answer going forward for the next couple of years at least. That's a win. If your defense is good and you just get crushed because you just don't have the offensive talent, that's a win too, because now you're going to dump Haskins, trade him, whatever, and you're going to go get quarterback number 2 next year, who's Ron Rivera's got. And the upside looks like we actually have coaches that are adults. Like you heard the story about allegedly how Alex Smith actually got hurt.
No, I did not.
Okay. This is according to what I've read online. So all due respect.
Yeah.
Allegedly, Jay Gruden and let me get the name. I want to make sure I get it right. Capri Bibbs were sleeping with the same woman. He benches Capri Bibbs because he's pissed. He puts in a less effective blocker in who blows the assignment and gets Alex's legs broken. That's what our franchise is. That play sums up the last 25 years of the franchise. All in one play.
Wow.
That is literally, our coach was so angry about cheating on his wife that he destroyed his quarterback. And Alex Smith is a good Christian from what I've read. And if I'm him, I might go punch Jay Gruden right in the face. Because you almost cost me my leg.
Yeah.
He's a better person than I am.
That's the thing. Yeah. If I were Alex Smith, I don't know why he's trying to make a comeback. He's got all the money.
I mean, yeah, I'm shocked too he's coming back, but
yeah.
I think it's just a pride thing, and that's great because he's got paid, he's gotten all the money. If he wants to be in camp, I got no issues. And if he steps foot at all in a real live game, and he doesn't win comeback player of the year, I just call foul because I don't want to hear nonsense about Ben Roethlisberger getting hurt.
17 surgeries. I mean,
and nonsense.
That's
legitimate.
Yeah, Joe Theismann. I mean, you remember it.
It's Theismann's injury, exactly.
Yeah.
That was bad too. God.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yes.
The number is 5.
We need a new quarterback.
The over-under is 5. What side of the coin do you fall on?
Because their defense, I think I'm going over. And I'm not hedging like everybody else has tonight. I really think they're over. I think it's 6 at least. And I can make the argument for more. The division is particularly weak. They don't have any stud quarterbacks once Wentz gets hurt in the division. Daniel Jones has giant question marks. Dak is Dak, meaning if he goes against a good defense, he's in trouble. Well, if the Redskins have a good defense, Dak's in trouble. Their O-line isn't what it used to be. They have question marks on their line. It's a question of when you add in their backup linemen who are really good, like Ioannidis, are you going to be able to handle the pressure that's going to come for 60 minutes? If you can't stop them, at least once a series, you're going to have a sack, and now you're going to have a 3rd and 15. And are you going to be able to convert that? Because now we're blitzing on top of that. And that's going to be the question. They're going to live and die with their defense.
Yeah.
It'll be a success if we can figure out if Haskins is the quarterback or not.
Well, hail to the Redskins, but the football team's 0-0. So
Hail to the football team.
Did we start all over? We don't even have a record.
There you go. Listen, all that bad stuff, that was the Redskins. We're not even talking about it anymore, right? So, Doug Anderson, thanks for the time. We appreciate it. Good luck to your team this year. And like I said, I happen to think they're better off going 2-14 for obvious reasons, but I guess we'll see how the cookie crumbles.
I agree.
Thanks, Doug.
But they never do anything right.
That's true. They can't even lose correctly. That's
correct.
Thanks, Doug.
Take care. Thank you.
Cheers.
Redskins are interesting. You know what? Listen, I'm going to call them the Redskins, I'm sorry. Like this is how I whatever. Like that's how I know them.
It's what we know them as. I mean, yeah, it is what it is with them. It's going to be interesting with them. See what happens. Right? They have a tough schedule too. I mean, it's going to be brutal for them too.
We'll finish out the AFC East. So another team that picked high in the draft, had actually multiple picks in the draft, was the Miami Dolphins. And we're going to bring on Dave Colasurdo, a local Miami Dolphins fan here in the South Jersey area. Dave, how are you?
What's up, Dave?
Sorry, I was watching my game.
Go Flyers.
No, you're good. I apologize for getting you on during the Canucks game. I will keep you abreast of anything that happens.
Yeah,
for me.
So it's going to be an interesting year.
So Dave, your Dolphins, interesting year last year. Yeah, 5-11, fourth in the East, didn't make the playoffs. 25th in points, 27th in total offense, 12th through the air, which is kind of weird, and 32nd on the ground. Again, there are 32 teams. They were 32nd in points against, 30th in total defense, 26th against the pass, 27th against the run. A lot of guys, though, added on to this team from last year. They brought in Eric Flowers. They brought in Byron Jones to a big contract, Jordan Howard from the Eagles, added Shaq Lawson, Kyle Van Noy. So they definitely went shopping in free agency. Really only lost Rashad Jones. 3 first-round picks due to a couple of trades. 5 overall, got Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback from Alabama.
Yep.
Austin Jackson, the offensive tackle from USC, came at 18 in regards to the Minka Fitzpatrick trade. Obviously, Mike knows Minka Fitzpatrick very well. Yep. And then I'm not even going to try to pronounce this guy's name. Noah Igbinoghene.
Oh, yeah.
Igbinoghene, cornerback out of Auburn.
Call him the eye.
Came from the Tunsil deal at 30th. Noah I, right. They had traded down. The over-under for this team is 6 this year. The story ended up, though, Dave, they were supposed to tank for Tua. Didn't really do that very effectively. Won a couple of games they probably had no business winning, like the Eagle game, like the Colts game. They ended up with Tua anyway. So your thoughts on what they did last year.
I love the non-tanking thing. I got what they were doing, but I love Flores for not tanking, and I love Fitzpatrick for not tanking. I think it goes guts. And, people think that Flores isn't going to be good because he came from Belichick and they don't have that good history. But, Flores went in there and won 5 games with nothing. Absolutely nothing, except for Fitzpatrick and Devontae Parker. Your running backs were absolutely atrocious. And they're all gone. Every single one of them didn't make the team this year or traded off, which should be done and was done. I don't see it being a failure as last year. I saw a lot of upside to it, and I think they're in the right direction, unlike some of these other teams, unfortunately. I think Fitzpatrick is a great leader. He's not going to win a Super Bowl now, but he's a veteran guy. He's been in the league for 17 years, so he must be doing something right somewhere. And if you look at his past history with some of these teams, some bad teams, real bad teams. But his numbers with Tampa Bay weren't not bad. But Tampa Bay had no defense, no running back. Now you're in Miami last year, no defense, no running back. But like you said, you're like, well, he was what, 17th in passing or whatever, or 12th. There you go, 12th in passing. The guy's got upside, and he's not a guy that's going to sit there and like you listen to his interviews. He's like, I know I'm holding the spot for Tua. But he's going to teach Tua how to be gutsy and humble. And I think that's what you got to do. You look at the receivers this year, you got some good ones. Devontae Parker finally came to his own. Preston Wilson, if he doesn't become a nut job off the field like he was, I see a lot of upside. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
And the draft, I think they did the best. I know you got rid of Minka, who was great, but the picks were what you needed. You had so much more leverage to go different ways. I just see upside. That's all I see.
So, Dave, you talk about the running back situation there. They brought in Jordan Howard. They acquired Matt Breida. The running back situation. You said they didn't have a running back.
Hess, it's Igbinogany. So thank you.
There you go. Brian was a little bit of knowledge there. So, I'll just shorten up, Dave. Their running back situation. Do you feel good about the running back situation this year and moving forward, or do you think that's something that's going to be an ongoing issue for them?
Well, it just depends on what they're going to do with this year. I like Breida. I love the fact they brought Breida in. I think he should take the starting job. Mm-hmm. I'm not a big fan of Howard. He's not bad. He's a bruiser. Mm-hmm. Not an every down back. I think Breida's got to be your number one, and you offset him. That's the bottom line. But it's better than what they had. I mean, the past maybe 10 years, I can't think of anybody that I would say is even better than either one of those guys. Really.
Well, I like Kenyon Drake. I didn't think Kenyon Drake was that bad. But
I don't know. He's too up and down.
I'm curious, see what Drake was.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, you get the whole spectrum, I guess. But I don't know. I like it this year. I like Breida. I think if you give him the shot, neither one of those guys are going to carry the ball 40 times a game.
Right.
But if you use them effectively together, it's going to help Fitzmagic and then do it a lot.
Here's my question on that, right? So they gave the 2 for Josh Rose. They gave a 2 for Josh Rosen, who's not playing. I don't know if that's his fault or just because the team doesn't see anything out of him. I don't know if that was like a scratch-off ticket for them, see if he could pan out because his first-round pick. They have Fitzpatrick there, and then they just drafted Tua Tagovailoa. So who would you start day one and why?
Oh, Fitzpatrick. Hands down. Day one, Fitzpatrick. Absolutely. Because Tua needs some help. He's got to come off that injury, and then you got to learn the process. You got that learning curve. I think Fitzpatrick starts minimum 4 or 5 games. Let's Tua show the ropes. If you're getting blown out, maybe throw Tua in, let him see something. He's not ready, and they know this. And Fitzpatrick said it. Tua said it. You got to go with Fitzpatrick. He'll lead you, and he's not going to cause a dramatic destruction of the team. Rosen, I don't know, man. I just feel like he didn't get a fair shake anywhere, honestly. I don't think he's as bad. I just don't think he was really developed well. I could be wrong, but
I agree. I think he got the short end of the stick in Arizona for a bad coaching hire.
Yeah,
and the guy came in and wanted to bring in his guy.
Yeah, it's tough. I feel bad for him, actually. I think he should be traded to a team that actually gives him a shot, but maybe he can be some bait next year. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think Dave, what you look at too with this defense. This defense is a very young defense. I mean, a lot of these guys, I'm looking at the roster, only 1 to 2 to 3 years, 4 years. 6 years is pretty much the highest that they go up to. Is that good from your end in a way of that? Yeah, they might take some bumps, but again, they're going to be together for a long period of time, and that's going to only bode well for chemistry.
I love the fact they revamped the whole defense. You got some great guys you brought in, and you got some great young kid talent. Whether they pan out, it's a whole different story. But at least you said they're going to have a few years together, and then you can decide what you got, and then either move on or not. Yeah. This is definitely not a 1 or 2 year flip. So you're not going to get all of a sudden the next year or two and be like, oh, here comes the new dynasty, and it happened. But you have more potential this year than I've had last 5. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. Since they snuck the division, what was that? 15, I think. Am I right on that? 5, 4, something like that. When they snuck out, I believe 10 and 6 or 5. I mean, there's a lot of upside this year. I don't know. It's tough. You look at the schedule. I mean, week 1.
Well, you look at the schedule, and
that's a question mark. I think that first game. I mean, we got to see what New England's going to be. So
so that can go either way.
To me, I think the hardest stretch. The hardest stretch to me is weeks 4 through 6. I mean, if they can come out 2-1 from the first 3 weeks, then you got home against Seattle, you're at San Francisco, and then going to Denver. I think is a lot harder than having Denver at home.
Yeah, back to back cross country. I mean, that's pretty brutal.
I don't know if they win a game in those 3. That's the tough part because I mean,
Seattle at home.
Their over under is 6.
Seattle at home is much better than being in Seattle. So
Yeah.
And the only thing on
It's
the way,
true. And they do have 3 weeks at home. In
Denver's coming back from San Fran. It's not that atrocious.
three consecutive games at home in December.
Wait, what do you see in December?
Where do
Oh, Kansas City.
Yeah, the three home games in a row. So, Dave, if the number is 6, where do you fall on that?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, honestly, if you look at the schedule and you look at the team, with Flores driving and Fitzpatrick driving these guys, they won 5 with nothing last year. I gotta go over 6. I mean, there's a lot of potential wins. I mean, even though you have the Jets, then you're off and you have the Jets again. I mean, it's the Jets. I mean, they're atrocious. I know
Back home games,
they play each other hard, but you take care of those 2 key teams, you got 2 wins right there. Cincinnati knows what Cincinnati's going to have this year. They're so off the wall. Then I don't know. If you sneak that one, there's 3 right there. I see a lot of potential. I think we go over 6. I really do.
I think it's right there. That number. That's about right there where they can end up. So
yeah, I mean they're not going to go 10-6, but
how many years away is this team from the playoffs?
The playoffs. If Tua Pan,
how many years away are they from the playoffs?
Stays healthy. 3.
Yeah, I would say 3.
That's what I give them.
Okay.
Maybe go
You
next.
heard it here first. Miami Dolphins will be in the playoffs within 3 years.
Find a good running back next year. Compliment Breida, man. I like it.
Yeah, we will see.
There you go. Well, Dave, thank you for the time. Obviously, good luck to your Dolphins. And if something big breaks down in Miami, we'll have you on for sure.
Just remember, you got to let Hess know when he gets on here that Miami did beat the Eagles. I have to remind him. He forgot to mention that, by the way.
I will remind him of that. Yes, that's no problem.
Let me know.
Dave, thank you.
I'll be around all
Take
year.
care, bud. Appreciate the time.
Oh, sliding right in.
Quigley coming on.
Listen, it's late night, guys.
The Dallas Cowboys.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Listen, absolutely. We definitely have gone a little later than we thought that we would.
I mean, when
we are talking Dallas Cowboys, getting back to. I will remind him of that. Yes, that's no problem.
You know.
Am I hearing some background there?
A little bit.
Yeah, there was a little feedback.
Cowboys.
Glad Brian Hess could join us.
Cowboys were a frustrating 8-8 last year, second place in the East. Did not qualify for the playoffs, though they should have. Pretty good offensively, 6th in points, 1st in total offense, 2nd in pass yards, 5th in rushing yards. Defensively, still pretty good too. 11th in points against, 9th in total D, 10th against the pass, 11th against the run. Added some pieces to their defense. Defensive end Everson Griffin, Clinton Dix to their secondary. Gerald McCoy was brought in, then let go due to an injury. A lot of big names on the way out, though. Byron Jones is gone. Robert Quinn is gone. Randall Cobb is gone. Malik Collins is gone. Jeff Heath is gone. And Jason Witten, for some reason, decided to go to the Raiders. They did add wide receiver CeeDee Lamb from Oklahoma with pick 17, which is a lot later than people thought he would go. Tony, the Jason Garrett era is over, finally. Thank God. Just can you just your thoughts there?
My thoughts. Well, I mean, we should get some kind of mug or I survived the Jason Garrett era T-shirt or something like that. I mean, we had to see him waste the entire talent of Tony Romo. We had to see him just sit there and become, average at best. The epitome of average. He kind of made the Cowboys organization, which obviously in their heyday was one of the more fun places to be. He kind of alienated a lot of players, stuff like that. So it wasn't really a destination for free agency. So, I mean, with that being said, good riddance, I mean, from his stamp on the playbook to his dulness and inefficiency in anything you can imagine that has to do with football, but hey, he's a nice guy, Nice guys finished 8-8.
So Tony, let me ask you. I've had a conversation with Brian for a long time now about Dak Prescott and his, was not brought in to be a starter. He's brought in to be backup. Unfortunately, Tony left, yada, yada, all that stuff. But this year, I think with what's happened with him with the the tagging and all that good stuff, it's kind of pretty smart that they brought in Dalton now, because with the weapons they provided him, especially bringing in CD Lamb now, and they've had Cooper and they have all these weapons around them. Do you think, what I'm thinking is that if he doesn't put up this year and doesn't move the needle even further than they did last year, this could be an Andy Dalton team moving forward next year?
I mean, it's set up like that. Let's go back to, how Dak kind of got baptized by the Cowboys, and that was just another classic Jason Garrett blunder. Give him a lot of credit, Dak Prescott, and for taking that role and taking a great team. But, as mistake after mistake that Jason Garrett made, he left Dak in there and didn't give Romo the reins and the playoff experience to that team that actually, should have had a very good shot at winning the Super Bowl. This upcoming season, it's almost set up where Dak isn't going to fail.
Right.
The offense is going to be so good that even if he has a little regression, talent-wise or ability-wise, or he doesn't progress at all, he's still going to put up some sick numbers, and you're still going to have the people that say, hey, listen, look at these numbers compared to other numbers. I'm not as hard on Dak as Brian is. I have seen some improvement, especially with the footwork and stuff like that early in last season. Now that kind of stuff kind of went away. It also kind of coincided with Kellen Moore getting his kind of play calling neutered, so to speak, by Jason Garrett. You could really see in games when Garrett would take over that playbook away from Kellen Moore, and it kind of made Dak a little bit more rudimentary of a player, easier to defend. In this day and age, accuracy, you can't just look at the percentages and say, oh, well, he completed 70% of his passes, because everybody's doing that in this era of the NFL. If you look, who was the MVP of the league this year? Lamar Jackson, right? Not many people had a good idea of him being an actual quarterback, but what the thing he does is he's a threat. He's an offensive threat. He runs. You have to use Dak in that manner, not as the extent as Lamar Jackson, but, he has to use his legs to be effective, and it sets up everything else. So as far as Andy Dalton coming in,
I kind of thought.
No, I was saying as far as Andy Dalton coming in, I mean,
Dalton will
be there and he'll be fine. Great backup plan. Would have to be a different type of offense, but you're looking at a offensively. There's really, I mean, is there a weakness on offense? I can't say one. Even with losing Travis Frederick and some stuff like that. You're saying, Brian?
I kind of opined over the offseason that I think they were always destined to franchise Dak, because you really need to see what he can do with Mike McCarthy. Again, it's a question mark. I think the last thing you'd want to do is commit to a long-term deal to a guy that you just don't know how he's going to pan out with a new head coach. So I thought that the franchise tag was always going to be the way that they went. However, when you look at the odds now, there are a couple teams, the Chargers are one, I think the Colts are one as well, that are actually more odds-on favorites than the Cowboys are to be Dak's team next year. I find that to be kind of interesting. What are your thoughts on that?
It doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, from a classic quarterback, 3-step drop back, 5-step drop back, throw, accuracy, hitting the open man, making the correct play, stuff like that. He's been lackluster in those kind of aspects. As just like a football player, like I've often compared him to Donovan McNabb in the past, as far as being a good football player but not being a good quarterback. Will McClay, who's actually the guy who builds the Dallas Cowboys, not Jerry Jones, who everybody kind of gives credit and or blame to, has done a phenomenal job year after year getting some talent in here. And if they're not making it happen, and Dak's supposed to be such a great quarterback at 8-8, obviously they are looking at other options, and I think one of the options is the boy in Green Bay, the bad man himself, Aaron Rodgers. I think they're trying to leave as many doors open as possible, And if they don't get it done this year, which is definitely a question mark, they do have an option.
A simple question, quick. How good do you think this defense is going to be this year for the Cowboys?
Well, I mean, how good can a defense be in this day and age, to be honest with you?
Will they be in the top 5?
In what measurable, though? I mean, that's the top 5 defense. See, here's the thing. Let's see who they added here. Number 1, they added Mike Nolan. Okay. Phenomenal defensive coordinator, to say what you want about a head coach. Then you order Aldon Smith, looks phenomenal in camp. Then you have, unfortunately, Gerald McCoy got hurt, so he's gone. But then they just signed Everson Griffin, Dontari Poe, who's a big addition. I think people kind of like skipping over on that. Trevon Diggs, the cornerback at Alabama, looks phenomenal. They have a young secondary. Ha Clinton Dix they added. So they've added all these pieces. Now the thing is that kind of scares me a little bit is that, since this COVID stuff's going on, there's not much continuity on defense. I mean, you have the phenomenal linebackers with LVE and the Predator and Sean Lee. And so that group's going to be solid, but everything else is pretty new. So without this, without the 4 preseason games and everything like that, everybody's just running back right into the season. So I think teams like, I think it was Baltimore that's returning like 20 of 22 starters, and other teams that have the continuity together, they have a really good advantage. Now, a defense, no matter how good the coordinator and everything like that is, with so many new parts, secondary, defensive line, it's going to be interesting. I think they'll gel later on in the season as they progress.
Do you see this team with a guy like Mike Nolan transitioning more to a 3-4? It seems like the personnel that or at least they were trying to bring in with a guy like McCoy, even a guy like Dontari Poe, like you can kind of get that feeling that that's the direction they want to go, to really, take those pass rushers back, put LVE and Jalen Smith in the middle there together. Is that the way you think they're going to end up?
I think from what I'm hearing, it's going to be a hybrid. I don't know if they're going to go true 3-4, but they are definitely going to show a lot of different looks. When you could hear a lot of the talk from the Dallas Cowboy players themselves, because they've been getting asked, about the offensive looks and the defensive looks and what's doing and what's difference between this year and last year, and that's one of the things that you're hearing. You're hearing that they're excited because it's not such a easy base defense to read. And, the players are really enjoying playing in it. So I don't know if it's going to be a traditional 3-4, 4-3 set, but they have the personnel where, I mean, you could have your defense tackle play the 3 or 4 technique, and LVE and Jalen Smith can they can play inside, they can play outside, they can play everywhere. So there's a ton of versatility there. But it'll be fun to watch, Yeah, this isn't pretty.
This is first place schedule. I mean,
what's that?
First place schedule.
It is not. It is not.
Well, it's the second place schedule.
There aren't a lot of gimme games here. Place. Yeah, second place. Well, there are stretches where it gets very difficult. I mean, I guess if you want to look at some upside or some positives, you do get San Francisco at home. You get Pittsburgh at home, but you have to go to Minnesota. You have to go to Baltimore. The division games are pretty well spread out for the most part.
Let's mention the home field advantage that the Cowboys have now. I mean, the Cowboys are actually selling full suites at a discounted rate, but full capacity suites. They are going to be fans in attendance, unlike a lot of the other areas teams. So I wonder to see how much that kind of impacts an actual true home field advantage. But I'm besides the Redskins, the Giants, to seeing where they're at. It doesn't look like too many gimme games on the schedule at all. And the gentleman you had on talking about the Redskins.
No, I
he must be on some shit if he thinks the Washington Redskins are going to be competing this year. Yeah, because if you look at the Cowboys and the Redskins in the last how many years?
I think he's a little more bullish. He's more bullish than I am.
What was that, bro?
He's more bullish on the Redskins than I, or the Washington football team than I am.
Yeah,
it's a dumpster fire from the organization itself to the front office to, I mean, how Ron Rivera almost died a couple weeks ago. So anyway, but getting back to the Cowboys,
yeah,
if you look at their first until Washington, the first 6 weeks, there isn't a gimme games, and there's teams like the Arizona Cardinals on there who's supposed to be greatly improved on offense.
Yeah.
Cleveland, who knows what the hell if they're going to get it together? They have a talented roster, but I mean, at Seattle's always tough. I mean, Atlanta, how many games did they win last year? But that offense they're always going to be able to compete, and that's an early game too. So you're talking about Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, they're going to be firing on all cylinders. Can the Dallas Cowboys young secondary keep up with them? So it's going to be a very, very tough schedule. And if they could get to the bye week, 500, maybe a little bit better, it would be good. It's going to have to, see how much the offense is clicking and see what they're scoring. I mean, Brian, you're a Cowboys fan. I mean, what are you looking at as far as the
well, I mean, the over/under is 10. I think you split with the Eagles. I think you sweep the rest of the division. So right. That's 5. So if I got to go 5, find 5 more wins. Cincinnati is 1.
Rams.
I think they win week 1, so that's 2.
Right.
I think they beat Atlanta, so that's 3. So I'm at 8. I think they beat Cleveland. I'm at 9.
Well, yeah.
So do you find
New York? At New York, last game of the year.
Well, that could be a must-win game. I mean,
Minnesota is interesting.
Well, I mean, they haven't had
New York. You said division. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, the way I look at it too, I mean, there's a lot of games on here that I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys lost. I wouldn't be surprised if they won. I mean, it's going to be depending on a lot of the product that's on the field. But yeah, it's not easy by any means. And I think that's kind of how the NFL is now. You're looking at a lot of parity.
We do have Brian Hess coming on next to finish out the NFC East. So I'm going to put you to the spot. I'm going to put him on as well. Will the Dallas Cowboys win the division?
If you asked me this a month ago, I would have been a little bit more reticent to say no. I would put the Eagles up there. But now, seeing the way some things are falling up in peace, I do think the Cowboys do have the inside track to beat the Eagles and take the division. Mm-hmm. Not happy at all. I mean, the Eagles fans can't be happy at all with what's going on as far as with their offensive line. And when you have a quarterback as fragile as Carson Wentz, that's kind of a priority. It could be a lot of smoke and, a lot of people just kind of being rah-rah about things. But, the Cowboys have, CeeDee Lamb, even Tristan Hill, who was drafted last week. Their young players are getting rave reviews. So, yep. I mean, if they can add to what the veterans already have kind of in front of them, I think that does give them an inside track to take over the Eagles. But it's 9 wins might win the NFC East with yep. And you're talking about the Redskins and the Giants not even being in the picture. So, I never would like to see a team get advantage because of injuries. But, it could be if Carson misses some time, even with Jalen Hurts, their second-round pick. If Carson misses some time, that's going to give the Eagles, 2 big step backs. Mm-hmm. If Dak misses some time, I think Andy Dalton, has shown in the past where he could throw the football, especially with these weapons.
Sure, Dalton's played well when he's had people around him, and that's the thing people forget. I think he's a very, very capable quarterback, and I think worst comes to worst, he'll get a job somewhere next year. If it's not Dallas, then they'll get a comp pick for him. So, I think it was a very shrewd addition by this team, and listen, they've drafted very well. I mean, give them full marks. I mean, there was a long time there where they didn't.
Yeah, if you go down to their offense, I mean, their receivers are stacked. I mean, their third receiver last year, like Devin Smith, might not even make the team this year because just how some people are going. with even a backup like Pollard. I mean, he's a weapon. He's not a backup running back. He's another weapon that you could actually run there with Zeke. And to see how Jason Garrett wasted it last year is definitely something I'm looking forward to seeing how Mike McCarthy uses them, because Mike McCarthy is not hey, let's run the ball down their throats kind of guy. He wants to throw the ball on first down. So if Dak isn't successful this year, it's going to be a thing. And don't forget about Blake Jarwin too.
That's actually my last question before we let you go. Is he's the guy nobody's talking about, and apparently he's having a real good camp, and he's going to be the fourth passing option at best, unless you want to say Zeke's the fourth passing option.
Well, yeah, I'd put Zeke ahead of him.
Yeah, so there you go. But he could be a guy that people aren't really talking about right now. But he gives you some of that what Witten did for many years, and again, I think Dak needs that short-term intermediate type of escape valve.
Well, yeah, because if you have somebody like CD's going to play the slot, and you have Gallup who's looked great in camp, and Cooper who's looked great in camp, and all these guys looking great in camp, opening it up. And I've been high on Jarwin for a couple of years ago, guys. 2 years ago, you really opened up the season strong. You get the ball in his hands, he could actually do something with it. As beloved as Jason Witten was, and I have no idea why he's actually still playing football. Maybe somebody just sent a deal. Listen, we'll sign you a lifetime contract in Oakland or Las Vegas, wherever they're at now, just to keep him out of the booth. That would be wonderful.
Right.
But you have a kid like Jarwin. I think they really needed to step it up and give the ball more to. And this year he's going to get his opportunities, and I think he's going to shine. Calling it now, Suggs. Dallas beats 49ers week 15. I can see that. Listen, with the talent on this roster, I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas is in the Super Bowl. And I also wouldn't be surprised if a couple of things don't go wrong. They're another 8-8 team.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 60th year for the Cowboys. So maybe that's a magic number.
The one thing you won't be able to blame is the coaching. I'll tell you that, because we are all clapping now.
Well, you can always blame the coach, and you just can't blame Jason Garrett.
Well, Tony, thank you for coming a little bit later than we asked you to be on. So thank you for spending the time with us, and go Cowboys.
Yeah, we should never talk about Cowboys or Philadelphia Eagles at 11 o'clock at night in this environment. Come on now, guys. We got to be better. You had that asshole from fucking Buffalo talking for an hour and a half. You started at 8:30 and he was on till freaking 10 o'clock talking about the Buffalo fucking Bills.
Hey, listen, that's
Chris Berman isn't circling the wagons. They're not that.
Always tells them like it is.
Tony Quigley, guys, again, you know him from the Sports Box. Find him every Wednesday night doing Baseline Jumper with Paul Allen. The basketball content is second to none. Highly encourage you to check them out.
Yeah, Craig, we'll get some sleep, man. We'll still be up.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, I got a basketball game to finish watching later, guys.
Okay. See ya. Listen, you know where I'm not hiding it, right? So, it's they got a lot of question marks. They still do. As good as I think the roster of 52 is phenomenal. I think it's top 5 in the league. I have a lot of questions about that quarterback, and I'm going to continue to have questions about that quarterback until I don't. And I would love nothing more than to be wrong. I just don't think that I am. We will close out our previews end here because this is the last set of divisions by bringing on our favorite and yours, Brian Hess from the Total Degenerate Show.
Flyers win, baby!
Baby! Hey, listen, guys, thank you for saving the best for last. I'm talking about myself, not the Eagles, who are going to be very, very disappointing this year. I got them at 6-10. I keep finding reasons to keep dropping their record here.
Well, Brian, we were going to get you on after midnight. That way we'd have a 2-day show. So now, we figured we'd get you on late. So
that's what I was figuring. I was like, at this pace, we're going to be on at midnight. I was hoping,
you know what?
I was hoping the Flyers, they'd be triple overtime. I'm trying to watch that, and I'll be on with you guys. It's what the hell?
We get passionate people on that want to talk about their teams, and we go deep into their teams. And I kind of thought it would be a long show, but Philadelphia Eagles 9-7 a year ago. They found a way to win the NFC East thanks to the Jason Garrett. Not a problem anymore, but they won the NFC East last year. They did lose to Seattle in the wild card round. Part of that might be a dirty hit onto the back of Carson Wentz's head. That might be why they lost that game. But relatively average team, if you break down the rankings. They were 12th in points, 14th in yards, 11th through the air, 11th on the ground. Defensively, again, 15th in points, 10th in total defense, 19th against the pass, but 3rd against the run. Pretty stout run defense there. A couple of big name additions to the offense, to the defensive unit. Javon Hargrave came over from the Steelers on the defensive line. Darius Slay, a big trade. I thought actually a pretty good trade for them. Didn't give up the whole lot to bring him in to play corner to fix that 19th ranked passing defense. Couple of subtractions that I don't really think anyone's going to be too concerned about. Nelson Aguilar, who can't catch. Ronald Darby, who can't cover. Jordan Howard, who pretty much just kind of runs forward, and Malcolm Jenkins, who ended up going back to New Orleans. In the draft, at 21st overall, they took Jalen Reagor, the wide receiver out of TCU. However, the storyline coming out of the draft was obviously the pick at 53, Jalen Hurts, quarterback out of Oklahoma. Now, not to belabor the point, and this is the last time we're going to bring it up because the season starts next week, I still, Hess, and tell me if I'm wrong, I still think that the storyline of the offseason is still Jalen Hurts. I think that nothing is, I mean, it's still the story that hangs over. Now that we've had time to digest and we're not in that, state of shock like we were when it actually happened, just kind of go over, what your thoughts are now, a week before the start of the season.
Oh, it still absolutely sucks. It's still an absolute waste of a pick. I said it at the draft, and it's still an absolute waste of a pick. Listen, you don't go up and get CeeDee Lamb, and that's always going to be who Jalen Reagor is going to be compared to, because you didn't go up and get CeeDee Lamb. He kept falling through the draft. You didn't go up and get him because you didn't want to give up pick 53, and that's what it would have cost probably to go up to like 15, 16. These teams, Atlanta wanted to get out of the 16, and they couldn't pull the trigger because they needed 53 to draft a freaking backup quarterback. And it still drives me friggin' bananas that you don't give your franchise guy that you just signed to an extension last offseason another number one receiver. And look, I like Jalen Reagor, but he's not CeeDee Lamb. Jalen Reagor is a one-trick pony, jet route, speed guy. All right? He's another Deshaun Jackson for when Deshaun leaves. Their reasoning for bringing in Jalen Hurts, I've been trying to wrap my head around it for 4 months. You look at last year, Carson Wentz, yes, he regressed. He didn't look great in the middle of the season. Last 4 games, he looked phenomenal. Whether you want to point to the lack of success that the teams had that he was playing against, I mean, there were 4 pretty bad teams. But he still managed to find a way to win those games throwing to absolute garbage. So it's a shame that the head injury happened in the playoff game, especially so early in the game. Just at least they see what he would have done in his very first playoff game. I mean, he had played like 5 plays, something like that, 5 pass attempts. I mean, it's a shame. But now they have their insurance policy because they're a quarterback factory and all this BS they keep spewing out and coming straight from the mouth of Howie Roseman, who, let me tell you something. Yes, they won the Super Bowl 3 years ago. The grace period's over for him. That seat's going to get hot real quick, quick, especially if they do not have a good year this year. And look, the free agency moves and the other moves, the Darius Slay, the Javon Hargrave, I mean, I like those moves, but the fact that you didn't address outside pass rush when it was a struggle last year, okay, now you're relying on the same exact guys to get on those edges. And in Jim Schwartz's defense, you need outside pass rush. If you're not getting to the quarterback, I don't care who you have at corner. I don't care if you bring in Darius Slay, because that's the one weakness Darius Slay has is he's going to get beat deep a couple times this year. You watch. He's not as fast as he used to be. Yeah. He's going to have to rely on his on finesse, on his experience, on things like that when you've been in the league for as long as he has. If you're their quarterback, they're gonna tear this defense apart. I got a question for you two. Can you name a linebacker that on the Eagles? Can you any linebacker on the Eagles?
No. I'll tell you what, Brian. You bring up some really good points. I think though the one thing that they're struggling with right now, and it's a big thing, is you lost Brooks already early in the year on the O-line. You lost Dillard now, and now Jason Peters is kind of holding them over a barrel, saying, "Well, I don't know if I want to change positions. You have to pay me." What do you think of that whole situation? Do you think, they're going to end up having to pay him because they're not going to release him? They release him. It's a big cap hit for them too. But, what do you think about that?
Okay, so they give him $3 million this year to play right guard, whatever.
Yeah. They're strapped. They've really got no other option.
I guess. Brandon Brooks is a huge loss. Huge.
Yeah.
And then when Dillard gets hurt, it's like, okay, well, then just slide Jason Peters back over there. But here's the thing, guys. Yes, he's a future Hall of Famer, but he's 38 years old.
Oh, yeah.
And he was tapping out of games last year, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, you need that depth that you really do not have. Now, yes, he wants more money to play left tackle, and I kind of get that. But if this happens, if Dillard gets hurt in, week 1, and all of a sudden, we're in a bind, and it's like, hey, JP, go over to left tackle. Well, he's, what are we going to pay him extra, right in the middle? Are you not going to move over to left tackle until we tell you in the middle of the game that we're going to pay you more?
Can I get that check at halftime?
Yeah, hello.
Yeah.
It's just weird. I'm kind of in the middle on that because I kind of see how Jason Peters has to, yes, left tackles make more money. But at the same time, he's putting himself ahead of the team. It's not a good look at all.
No.
You look at his practices. He's always on the side. He's getting stretched out. And it's like, I don't know, man. I love the guy. He put in some great time here. But I think, I was looking forward to moving on from him. And now you've brought him back in first to play guard and now to maybe play him at left tackle.
Yeah.
The guys they have been throwing in there in training camp at left tackle because they've left Peters at guard. They're kind of calling his bluff. Matt Pryor, Matt Pryor's a damn turn. He's not a left tackle. I don't know why they're trying to figure that out and throw him in over there. Guys like Josh Sweat are killing him in practice.
Josh Sweat,
first round pick. Josh Sweat.
Sweat. Oh,
yeah.
God.
And so Josh Sweat's been killing him at practice, and that's not going to work. What are you going to do? You're just going to have to makeshift this whole offensive line all year. It's not good. Like Tony kind of hit on it. Wentz is injury prone as he is. Whatever you want to say about how injury prone he is, whatever. So you got to protect his blind side, right? So what are we doing? You got to have something solid over there. If you put Lane Johnson over there when he can come back. Is that what's going to end up happening? Because you can't go into the year with Matt freaking Pryor as your left tackle. That's just not going to happen.
We had Trey Thomas on the show, and he said, you can't play these guys out of position. It's like asking Bryce Hart to play third. It's just not what you – we as just football fans, just move the guy there. He's going to block the – it isn't that easy. We assume there's a plug and play to it that there really isn't. And, if you're used to backing up this way and this is your technique and here's your footwork, all of a sudden you just change the other side. It's a big difference.
It's like moving a wide receiver to the tight end position.
Yeah. And really, to your point, they're a deceptively old team, but now it's not even that deceptive anymore because you have age everywhere. And the injury bug, Drager's now out a few weeks. Brooks is out for probably the year. Dillard is out for probably the year. And guys just keep getting banged up. And this is like a recurring event with this team. Every year, it just seems to happen. I don't know if it's a health problem or a health problem, a medical team problem, whatever it is. It just seems like, and maybe because we're here, it seems like they get it more than other teams. I don't remember them going through a training camp without getting some major injury lately.
It goes back to, and I mentioned this last night with Drew on AE. He has a game-winning drive show. We were talking to Eagles, and I said 3 years ago when they won the Super Bowl, when they were the deepest team in the NFL, they could overcome all these injuries. Jason Peters went down in week 9. And Halipuli Vaitai stepped in and played phenomenal. And, when you're paying your quarterback on his rookie contract, you can afford to be deep at all the other positions, okay? Now, you're paying Carson Wentz, you're going to have to hit your draft picks. And this is where I say this is Howie Roseman's biggest weakness because he can't draft. The guy cannot draft, all right? I mean, he's good at trades. He's decent with free agency, but he can't draft. The only couple drafts that were even a little bit good were when Joe Douglas was here. And honestly, those picks haven't really come in either. So when you're not hitting your draft picks and you don't have the depth and you get injuries like this, I mean, this is like 3 years running now, that it's not good. It's not good. I mean, this was the biggest thing, going back 20 years, and I'm talking Andy Reid, and Doug Peterson's off that Andy Reid tree. They always built from the lines out. And they just don't have the depth on either side. They really don't. And you can bring, like I said, you can bring in a guy like Darius Slay, and it's just he's not gonna be as effective as he should.
Sure, but let me ask you about Slay. The Eagles historically have been a team that brings in high-profile corners, and they don't work out. Nnamdi Asomugha, I mean, first and foremost, I don't think Asante Samuel was that good in Philadelphia. Just guys that pop into my head.
Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie.
Yeah, guys that have been, high-profile guys elsewhere. They come to Philadelphia, and they're not very good. That's probably a scheme problem, but whatever. I mean, this is
Byron Maxwell.
Byron Maxwell. I forgot about Byron Maxwell.
How do you forget Byron Maxwell?
I know. That's the number 30.
The jersey is hanging up in the
that's the Marco
studio.
That's the Marco Murray.
Okay.
That's the DeMarco Murray jersey that Paul McCree went longer distance than Murray did wearing it on the field.
I do own a Byron Maxwell jersey, and it is hanging in my closet. Yeah. I do admit that.
But convince me Slay's not the next in the line.
I can't. I mean, I liked the move when it happened because I thought they'd be able to bolster their line. But I mean, what are you gonna do? You're gonna just have him as your lockdown guy because he's not that guy anymore.
Right.
He really isn't, and I think he's just not gonna. It's not gonna look as good as it did at signing, just because the line's not gonna get enough pressure. I mean, listen, Cox and Hargrave better be pushing the middle of that pocket every play. Every pass play, they better be getting in there.
Eagles fans are notoriously impatient and notoriously love the backup quarterback. And it just feels, for whatever reason, that a lot of people are kind of getting off that Carson Wentz wagon. And this is year one of the extension, if you want to talk about contracts. I mean, really, this is when the contract actually hits. And there's all these people talking about, drawing the correlation, the drafting Jalen Hurts, and a contract out possibly in a couple of years. They're going to maybe try to move on. I don't necessarily subscribe to that theory. But is he, unless he's able to win one with the Eagles, is this a situation where that Nick Foles cloud is just always going to be over top him, that he will just never be able to get out from under it because a Disney movie happened and he happened to be there on the wrong side of it?
I hate to admit it as a big Carson Wentz fan, but I think that it is. I think that his biggest thing with, coming back from that ACL injury, man, and, 2 years is usually the time frame for that, and we're talking that was week 14 of this past season is 2 years exactly since he tore his ACL. And yes, Nick Foles came in and took this team and this city to a Super Bowl that they've never had before, their very first one. And the Eagles fans loved him. More importantly, the Eagles team fell in love with Nick Foles. And you ask anybody who played on that team with Nick Foles, and they love him. You can't find a guy that didn't love him. Carson Wentz, on the other hand, for whatever reason, kind of rubs his teammates the wrong way. Story broke last year. Josina Anderson breaks that there's an anonymous source in the Eagles locker room that thinks Carson Wentz is a bad teammate, blah, blah, blah. Come to find out it's Alshon Jeffrey.
Too anonymous. I think we know who it is.
I mean, yeah, we found out later it was Alshon Jeffrey, but you know, I mean, you got guys leaking this kind of information now. It's not good. It's not good for the locker room. I mean, I don't understand what exactly it is about Wentz that guys just don't like him. I don't know. I don't know. But like I said, I mean, Wentz is always going to push himself and his teammates harder because, you know, he's got a ring, but he wasn't on the field when they won it.
Yep. Mike?
This defense, the secondary, what do you think, Brian? Greatly improved, or are they going to struggle again like they did earlier last season?
Sorry, Mike, I couldn't hear you.
I said the secondary.
Yeah.
Mike,
he can't hear you. Get out. Get back in. Okay. He was asking a question, I think, about the secondary. Just, I guess, your thoughts on the defense as a whole.
How's that, Brian? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now, Mike. Thanks.
There we go. Okay. Was talking about the secondary. They made some moves in the secondary, like Darius Slay and some guys. You know, Jenkins is gone now. Things like that. Do you think they're going to improve vastly from last year, or are they going to be kind of the same kind of team that they were last year in secondary?
Well, like I was saying, I mean, in Jim Schwartz's defense, where you only rush 4 majority of the time. I mean, even last year they were trying to blitz more often than he would like. So you're kind of like leaving your corners. If your front 4 don't get there, you're leaving your corners and your defensive backs in pretty bad shape. Now, I do like the moves that they made. Is Darius Slay that guy, that number 1 guy anymore? No. But can he?
Better than what they had.
He is better. He's a lot better than what they had. Yeah. So you have Avonte Maddox is probably going to be your number 2, although I would probably give Sidney Jones a shot because he was your second-round pick, and he's going into the last year of his contract. So I would give Sid, and he played well at the end of last year. And then they brought in Nick Roby-Coleman to play the slot corner.
1-0 Vegas.
Yes, I saw that too. And then I agreed with moving on from Malcolm Jenkins.
Mm-hmm.
I like the one draft pick I liked in the entire draft was this kid Kavon Wallace from Clemson. Reminds me of good old B. Doc, safety out of Clemson, big hitter, can cover. Might not see too much of him this year, just on special teams, but I do think he has a bright future. Mm-hmm. So I mean, we'll see. We'll see what the defense can do. I don't think the defense is going to be that good, just because it does. You got to get to the quarterback, and I don't think they will.
A couple questions on the offense. One is everyone's expectations are sky high in the fantasy world for Miles Sanders this year. The year before me. I have a satellite dish, so things are a little bit late. That's okay. Miles Sanders is finding his way into nice goal. Finding his way into that first, second round kind of turn. I think expectations are really high for him. So I'm just curious what you think he does this year, and also why in the blue hell are they talking contract extension with Zach Ertz? Explain that to me, please.
So the Miles Sanders thing, the Eagles for years, especially under Doug, they love to use multiple running backs, and they've always had multiple guys. The Super Bowl year was Ajayi, Blunt, and Corey Clement. Now you've gotten to the point where, Boston Scott's decent, and, but they don't have anybody else. It's Miles Sanders. And you saw last year after Jordan Howard got hurt, and it was just Miles Sanders, how much they used him, how much of a workhorse they used him as. And Boston Scott, got his touches and whatever, but Miles Sanders looked phenomenal. And they did not bring in any other running backs for this year. So you got to think it's more Miles. It's going to be Miles Sanders being that workhorse type of guy. And, with his skill set, I could see him being a top 5 running back at the end of the day by the end of the year if he can stay healthy. Now, obviously, there's been some injury concerns already in the preseason, but I mean, the sky's the limit. The guy is super talented, and he's going to get a ton of carry, probably some catches too, because Wentz is going to have to get rid of the ball soon. I like Zach Ertz fantasy-wise this year. I would not be talking extension with him because you have Dallas Goedert, damn it. We've had this conversation a million times.
Yeah.
You have Dallas Goedert already. You took him in the second round 3 years ago. 2 years ago. This was after the Super Bowl year. You have a guy that can be a competent starting tight end. You're going to be $50 million over the cap next year. You're trying to roll all this money from this year. That's why all these guys that keep coming up that are usually tied to the Eagles, and the Eagles are just like, no. Yeah. And we're not giving up draft picks. We're not paying these guys because we're trying to roll as much money as possible into next year because we're in cap hell. And you're in cap hell and you want to talk extension with a guy just because other tight ends are getting paid around the league. Like, you can't do that. I understand you don't want to trade him because I would trade him as much as I love the guy and he's fantastic. But you have so many holes at other positions that you need to move on from Ertz. Goddard is a good player, and see what you can do with the assets that you get back so that you can fulfill these other positions like offensive line where you have no depth.
Right. I mean, you're going to stunt Goddard, period, if Ertz is still there. No matter whatever Goddard is, they're never going to be because you have Ertz there. So looking at the schedule, there's really no reason they're not 3-0.
Oh, I'll give you a reason why they won't be 3-0 is because they start off slow every year, and especially this year with no preseason. I would not be surprised if they lose 2 of these games.
Really?
Absolutely, because like I said, they start off slow every year.
Hess, we talked about that opening game. Even though it's Washington, they got a really good front four. That if that offensive line for the Eagles is in trouble, I mean, it could be a long day for Carson Wentz if they can't get him protection. So that game's going to be interesting, I think.
I mean, you remember last year.
Donald coming on the second game.
Right.
This offensive line is going to get tested early.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you look back to last year when the Eagles were supposed to have one of the best rosters in the league, and they're down 17-0 to this same Washington team, obviously with Case Keenum instead of Dwayne Haskins. And it took, Deshaun Jackson going nuts in the second half to come back and win that game.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are stretches in this schedule that if I were an Eagle fan, would make me, rather unhappy. 4 through 6, you have to go to San Francisco, to Pittsburgh, you host Baltimore. That can easily be 0-3. You get a kind of a bye week, I guess, if you play the Giants, and you have to go play the Cowboys the week after. And then there is a stretch of 5 games from the end of November to the end of December that is really relatively brutal. You have to host Seattle on a Monday night. You go to Green Bay on a short week. You come back to play the Saints. You go to Arizona and then to Dallas. I mean, that's a tough schedule.
It's a first place schedule.
It's a first place schedule. So thank you for that. But you have to win the games that are outside of those stretches because those stretches are going to be brutal.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's why I'm predicting their record to not be very good because those are brutal stretches. Like, even the Giants, who I think are actually going to be better than what people think this year, I think the Eagles actually beat them twice because of where they're at on the schedule. They're playing them on a Thursday night at Philly, and then they're playing them in New York after the Eagles bye week. Other than that, and then I think they can split with Dallas, and I think they can beat Washington twice. But, outside of their division, they might win 2 games. Maybe.
Wow. So you're saying 6-10, 7-9?
I'm saying 6-10.
The over
at the beginning, 6-10.
The over 9.5.
Wow. I like.
They don't even come close. They don't even come close.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that
number's got to come down now with this offensive line troubles. Now that line's got to come down.
I will tell you the one advantage I think that they do have in this division is they're the only team with continuity of head coach. Every other team in the division has a head coaching change in this really weird environment that we're in, where you haven't really been able to install an offense and a defense, the way you normally would, and with a preseason to test it out. So that is an advantage that they do have. But yeah, I mean, man, if they're even 500 into that 5-game stretch in November, December, not good.
Oh yeah, forget it. I mean, they're going to have to buck the trend of starting out slow, and they really do have to start the season 3-0 if they have any chance of doing anything this year.
Yeah, no, I agree.
They have to, because it's three below average teams.
Yeah. I guess my last question before we let you go and end the show here is Deshaun Jackson de facto number one?
Zach Ertz is the number one. Let's be honest there. He's the number one receiver.
I mean, I just remember having conversations this time last year that PFF had the Eagles receiving group as the number one team in football. And I just look at it now and I'm like, I just want to know, was it Quaaludes? Was it some sort of illegal substance that would make anybody believe this was the number one group in football and write an article for people to pay for? And I just like, yeah, sure.
Well, look, I will say that this is Carson's best chance to get back to where he was, because he has something that he has not had since 2017 when he had that MVP-like season, and that is speed receivers. He had Torrey Smith that year, and he didn't have. They brought in Mike Wallace to take Torrey Smith's role in 2018. Mike Wallace got hurt. They bring in Deshaun Jackson last year. He plays one game. Look what happened in that one game. Deshaun gets hurt, misses the rest of the season. If these guys can stay healthy, because that's all they did was bring in these speed receivers. Okay, that's all they did at receivers, is bring in dudes that can fly. If they can get a couple guys that can just stretch the field and open up stuff underneath for Sanders and Ertz, especially with the offensive line woes where they're going to have to get rid of stuff quick, maybe you leave a back or a tight end in the block, because God knows he's going to need it. Maybe Wentz can put together a good season.
Hey, Hess, do you remember I think it's about 4 or 5 years ago now, on a nice warm day in Tampa, Fitzpatrick throws a bomb to Deshaun Jackson, the opening play against the Birds.
That was like 2 years ago. That wasn't that long ago.
That was 2 years ago, wasn't it? That was
2 years ago, right?
That was the second game after the Super Bowl season. Yeah. That was week 2.
Okay.
And you guys, you guys lit us up pretty good there.
Unless miraculously feels healthy.
Well, for some reason, exactly. I thought he played with Washington after Tampa, but it was the other way around. He went to Washington, then Tampa, then Philly. So
correct.
Yeah, probably like 2-3 years ago. Yeah.
Well, now that you've depressed our Eagles viewers,
I gotta keep it real, man. I gotta keep it real, bro.
He came on with you. I didn't depress him.
What do we say? We say fandom-based analysis is not analysis; it's cheerleading.
Hey, listen, that's right. That's right. Two more.
Tampa Bay won the Eastern Conference Final 2 nights ago. Period.
Listen, we keep the bar low as Eagles fans. Keep the bar low. Keep the expectations low, because whenever we got high expectations, that's when we finish like 8-8 and 9-7. All right. Yeah. When we have expectations low, that's when we go and win the Super Bowl, right? Come on.
Wait, hold on a second. Hold on. I want to put this up.
I was going to put that up there.
Yeah, that's weak. That's weak, John. I like you too, man.
I love John.
No, listen, for anybody, we are over right now. I thought we would go to about 10:30.
Oh, we're way over.
I thought way over for team. It's gone way over that, and that's that's a miscalculation on my part.
Listen, this show feels longer than a draft show we had. And that show was like 4 hours.
It was like 5 hours. The draft show next year a lot more. We had like 10 people, but anyway, so Hess, thanks for taking the time. Thanks for staying up late with us. Talk about your Birds, and in not too distant future, they'll be taking the field. Guys, again, check out Brian Hess every Tuesday night. Well, most Tuesday nights, because sometimes schedules come in conflict. But 7 o'clock, the Total Degenerate Show, and he's always kind of sprinkled in here and there. I call him the Iron Man of the sports box, because he's always all over the place. And we'll try to get him on the Sunday weekly previews if we can get it on the schedule too.
Yeah, definitely, guys. Thanks for having me on. All right,
absolutely.
Go Flyers.
Hey,
Hey, man. See ya.
I hate both teams, so I don't really have
Nice.
So listen, I told you before we started, are you really in a comfortable chair? My ass hurts because I've been sitting in this chair for the past 2 hours, 55 minutes.
I'm getting back surgery in a month. I might have to move it up now.
Listen, I had it right away at 8 o'clock this morning. I'm sure that's worn off by now. But anyway, if you are still watching, God bless you, and thank you for watching tonight's finish off to our NFL preview series with the NFC East and AFC East. And I just want to give a really quick shout out to our friends over at Crowd Play who bring you the show tonight. The app is free. We're getting into football season now. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on with that. Just a lot more opportunities to have some fun with it. Apple App Store, Google Play, and you want a little more information about what they do? Check this out. Crowd Play, check it out. We will not be on the show next week. It is my annual Fantasy Football League draft.
I would like to be on, but we're not
after Labor Day, so I will not be around. I'll be doing that. Maybe you'll see Mike. I don't know. We'll see. Who knows?
Possibly.
Mike's got 3 shows of worth of work tonight, so maybe he doesn't want to do the show. I don't know.
Absolutely. So thank you again for watching us tonight. We appreciate the diehard fans that have watched us this long. We love you. We appreciate all the help. For myself, Hamilton, Mike Galletta, and Brian, the Ranger Attard. Thank you. We're out. Go get some sleep. Can't wait for football. See you.
Go.
Thank you for watching the Sports Box. Follow us on Facebook at Sports Box Show, Twitter at Sports Box Show, Instagram at The Sports Box Show. Find us on YouTube and join Outside the Box, our Facebook sports discussion group. The Sports Box is brought to you by our friends at Crowd Play. Download the free Crowd Play app today and use promo code THEBOX at sign up for 10 points. See you next time.